controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the situation.
This 4th day of November 2020. You're listening to us. If you're following stuff online, wherever you are, well, we're here with you. A very good morning to you and welcome to the show today. C.T. Muga is in the house. Good morning, C.T. Muga.
Well, C.T. Muga in the house greets you back and he is well.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and he also wants to know how you are doing.
You are doing well.
Oh, thank you very much for, yes, I am doing well. Thank you very much for stating it.
You are fine.
Okay, and how are we doing otherwise?
We are fine.
We here includes you, Ndu. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Nduoko is here.
Yes.
Good morning.
Yes, for our listeners who think it's one word, it's not Nduoko, it is Ndu Oko.
Two names.
Separate names, yes.
Voila.
Uh-huh. How are you?
Voila.
Fine, thank you.
See?
Yes.
So this is what happens when people are away. They come back and they have new names.
Yeah.
So it's Ndu Oko. Voila.
Voila.
Hey. How are you?
How are you feeling?
I'm fine.
It's good to have you back.
Thank you. It's good to be back. I missed your faces. Both of you.
Oh.
I did.
You know, thank you. I have to say that when you said you missed the faces, I don't know what happens to my system, but my mind went to a song that was sung by somebody called James Stewart. Now, Rod, see James
Rod Stewart.
Yeah. Since I can't sing,
You can sing very well, actually, City.
I will not mention.
Now you have to sing the song because now Eric and I are wondering the tune. Isn't it, Eric?
I will sing the song for the two of you after the show or during the break.
She just tell us the lyrics. Just read the lyrics.
Then Eric will sing it.
The lyrics.
I know
we will look for it.
It's very, very early in the morning. I don't want someone listening to the lyrics, listening to the cacophony of my voice and simply veering off the road. Nope. After 8, when people have settled in the offices, we can talk about that particular song.
Okay.
Yes.
Ni sawa sawa.
Maridadi.
Kabisa. It's happening in the States. So now polls are closing in some areas. Others have closed. Next polls close in about 58 minutes. So far, it's looking quite interesting in terms of some areas where Biden is leading, some areas where Trump is leading, and some areas where they're saying it's still too close to call. We will have a conversation on the American elections today for a couple of sessions. We'll be looking at what is being reported, what is being said. We'll be looking at if, and just even comparing, if this was Kenya, how would it be looking? Imagine a country where before the second Tuesday of August, 100 million people have already cast their ballot.
Their ballot.
Before voting day. And nobody has opened that ballot.
Hasn't been opened. Nobody's checked to see. Has not even been counted.
And then on voting day itself, people go and vote and then they go back home. And we don't have issues of, it's Chebukati, where are we at Bomas? No. It's just happening.
Imagine.
No one is leaving the country, taking a flight somewhere. You don't even hear any story of a server being in another country.
Imagine.
No.
No. These are things you don't hear. But of significance, and something that is in tandem with both the postal voting and the actual voting, is that the numbers they're seeing are unprecedented. They're numbers that have not been seen in the longest time.
Yeah, the voter turnout this year has been quite some. And I think this year with the US elections, you've seen that quite a number of people have come out asking the American populace to vote. And it's come from all corners, all quarters, professional quarters, celebrity, etc. have been saying, you know what, this is the opportunity. And actually vote. And I think we've asked the question oftentimes, what can you actually do in your own circle. In your own circles, this is what people have been doing, asking people to come out and vote because they can see the results of you participating in this civic duty.
In this country, we would urge people to register as voters.
Yeah.
Because many people don't register.
Yeah.
They're involved in the processes of, they're in the campaign trails, they're in the heckling and the cheering and the booing,
Yeah.
and in the drama, but they cannot vote because
They never registered.
Yes, and then there's the little detail. Some people do not have an ID, and in the absence of an ID, you cannot. But on this hangs a little balance, wouldn't you say, Eric? With the Huduma number issue and the suspension of things pertaining to Huduma matters. When it comes to registration, will you now need a Huduma number to register, or will the ID still work?
The Huduma number will now be your one and only document.
You must remember that matter has been suspended with the rulings that the courts had, my friend.
It was cleared, and we were told that once you get the data commissioner in office, you're good to go. That's why we are looking at Ms. Kasait and what happens in the National Assembly, and then what happens with her appointment. She gets appointed.
Let me repeat again.
Next thing we roll.
As of now, that whole issue is suspended.
Yeah.
That is precisely what I'm saying. And we cannot tell what's going to happen next.
Yeah. No, the condition they were given, the government was given, is ensure that you have the data protection issues sorted.
That data protection issue was also one of the issues that was actually suspended by the courts.
So when with the new laws that have been suspended.
Yep.
So if at least this one, if the National Assembly then can go and have concurrence with the Senate on this particular bill, they move on. Because they've been suspended for 6 months, allowing the National Assembly to reach out to the Senate to get consensus.
One of the reasons why
if you
see
get the concurrence of the Senate,
then I think they're good to go.
Yeah.
See, one of the reasons why I'm bringing this thing up is our voter registration usually takes place a lot earlier, long before the actual period. The so-called official electioneering period kicks off.
Yep.
And if it's supposed to kick off and you still have this thing hanging in the balance, then again, you have something that requires sorting out.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. So hiyo mambo yote tutakuwa tukiangalia leo. Karibuni sana kwenye kipindi cha leo. We appreciate you being here. We will still look at COVID-19 in numbers as the American election goes on. Yeah. And we know that today the president is set to meet with the Council of Governors to discuss the rise in COVID-19 numbers in the country. We know that already the deputy president has said my Meet the People tour has been suspended for a while. And the people were saying, maybe that's an indication of what we to expect after today's meeting.
Sure.
Anyway, let's look at the numbers.
Okay, so what are we looking at? Let's look at Kenya first. 492 new cases and 12 deaths in the country yesterday, taking the numbers to 57,093. Total number of cases in Kenya with 1,039 deaths now in the country. Just looking at some numbers that are actually quite worrying. But just looking at 350% is the number by which cases have risen in the country since the opening up a month ago. And that month ago is as of tomorrow, from the 6th actually of November. So a month ago, economy was opened up and the cases have risen by 350%. And that's what we're looking at in Kenya. If we look around the rest of the world, those cases now have risen significantly, 47,844,911. The United States now at 9.692 million cases. India at 8,312 cases. And going down. Look at these countries that are suffering the brunt of these high numbers of cases. From France at 1.5 million to Spain at 1.3, the UK at 1 million. High numbers in Germany, still less than 1 million, but 577,000. All of these countries this week are going into lockdown. And we're not talking about suggestions of lockdown, complete lockdown. Bars, establishments being closed. And schools going back to online learning in some of these countries, some not. But all of these countries, we're looking at the UK today, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, going locking it down. France already has done that. Ireland, like we know, did that a couple of weeks ago. So everybody's doing that this week and going well into the first week of December. And they're saying that if they do this for the next 4 weeks, what they will be able to see is that the numbers would go down and they will be able to contain it once again and try to keep the measures as tight as possible. So these are the trends we're looking at around the world. We're looking at 1,222,224 deaths globally. And then we've seen these recent spikes around the world. The US, not really talking about a lockdown, obviously, because there are more important things going on at the moment with the elections taking place. But it's likely that Fauci and his team are having, their hearts are doing belly flops at this point, because they're saying we're getting to a point where the numbers are skyrocketing. But we can't do anything about it at the moment because nobody's really...
Because nobody wants to hear that.
Nobody wants to hear
that.
Today
is the day that the UK Prime Minister goes to Parliament, right? Seeking approval for his new round of lockdown.
Yeah.
Which is set to begin tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is there much opposition to this from the others? I think I've heard some, like Labour is already saying, we're good to go.
Yeah. Everybody's saying,
right, this is what we need to do.
Yeah, everybody's saying this. And this is from government officials to citizens. Citizens saying, you know what, we're doing all that we can do right now. Prepare for the next couple of days. We're going into lockdown. Yep. Because they've also seen the dangers that this poses. The risks are quite high. They've not seen numbers like this since the last 6 to 8 weeks. So it's interesting because everybody is in agreement. Government plus opposition, citizens, everybody's saying, you know what, okay, they say we're locked down. Let's do it.
So when you say there is a surge, are we referring to completely new cases?
Yes.
Or is it a combination of people who are tested positive, tested negative, and now positive again? Which is which?
It's new cases, and that's what the worry is. It's new cases.
So it means that they're testing more?
Yes, they are testing more.
Or people are presenting themselves for testing?
Now, there's two things that are going on. People are presenting themselves to hospital with symptoms. And then through this, they're testing and then testing their contacts. And then they're finding that many more new cases are actually coming up. Random testing, yes, is taking place. However, the bulk of the cases that they're finding are people who've presented with symptoms.
Interesting.
And this is interesting because it's across the board.
You posed that question, CT. It's like there is another definition of surge. You're asking whether surge means new cases or surge means people who had tested positive, testing positive again.
Yes, it's a composition of the surge. Because you see, if you're talking about the Western world, their testing has been consistent and they have been upping it. But when you hear that word, you assume that when you talk of a surge in Kenya, you may mean the same thing. And I'm just wondering aloud whether indeed, in reality, it means the same thing. Because while our testing numbers are really low, the testing numbers on this continent, with the exception of maybe South Africa, are really low. So when you talk about the numbers and you talk about even, remember we raised this thing earlier in the show, the flattening of the curve, or we asked, what are we talking about really? Given the numbers that we are testing, our results, if the testing is low, the results you will get
will be low, for sure.
Okay? And comparatively speaking, how sure then am I that, or are we, that people who have been tested, turned negative, don't get tested again? Because again, when you hear of reinfection, remember the really early conversation was that the likelihood of being reinfected was next to zero. Now, being reinfected is a reality. In fact, it's a big reality simply because it's been found that one of the things that COVID does, it really attacks and lowers your immune system. Forget your cognitive capacity, that's one thing, but just your immune system. So it means you're more susceptible to being. It is from that background that I raised the question.
Sure, I get it. Yes. Looking at some of those countries, though, we also understand that they're getting into the very cold, very, very cold winter months across that area. And people's immunity definitely will be compromised as a result of the weather conditions.
Seriously,
we already see that happening. I mean, we're looking at 100,000 new cases almost in the United States as of yesterday alone, and 1,199 deaths, likely to increase.
Okay, so let's take a break at this point at 6:15. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Our live stream is up. Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. Wherever you are, good morning, and thank you very much for tuning in. say hello to us, and we'll say hello right back at you on Spice FM KE, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Let's take a look at the weather.
"24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
COVID-19 imeimpact lives za wase wengi sana. Watu wame lose jobs, kutoka mama mboga, business owner next door, neighbor amefungiwa hao na landlord. Pesa imekuwa mteja, haipatikani hata ya kuweka chakula kwenye meza. Ili kujenga jirani, unaweza toa suu moja, 100 bob only, na hii inaweza badilisha maisha wa Kenya wengi sana. Na usisahau kuungana na sisi for the Jenga Jirani Charity Festival 7th and 8th of November on KTN Home, na pia itakuwa online on www.jengajirani.org. See you then, ili tujenge jirani and show some love.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
The Nairobi City County Government would like to inform the public that His Excellency Governor Mike Sonko has extended the waiver on house rent payable to the county by 6 months. The move is aimed at cushioning Nairobi residents who are tenants in the Nairobi City County government houses and are still recovering economically from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Nairobi has been the epicenter of the COVID-19 pandemic in Kenya, with thousands
All right,
of residents.
Wednesday morning, and what are we looking at in Nairobi? Light rains are going to continue through most parts of the morning. Still at 16 degrees, we're going to see a high today of 23, and those rain showers likely to continue through most parts of today. In Nakuru at 16 degrees, light rain also occurring here. Highs of 23, and those rain showers are going to last throughout Wednesday. On Wednesday in Nyeri, it's mostly cloudy at 14. We will see rain showers later with highs of 21 and lows of 14. We'll take a look then into Eldoret, where at 14 degrees it's mostly cloudy. Chance of rains later, but it looks like mostly sunny conditions in the afternoon then, with highs of 22 and lows of 14. In Kisumu, 21 degrees and mostly cloudy, highs of 29 and lows of 20. Partly sunny conditions then later into the afternoon. Kakamega is 21 degrees and mostly cloudy this morning. Partly sunny conditions later with highs of 29 and lows of 15. We'll take a look then into Mombasa, where it's 25 degrees. Light rain happening here at the point. 29 degrees are high and lows of 24, with sunny conditions coming in later in the afternoon. Malindi is mostly cloudy at 21. Mostly cloudy conditions throughout today with highs of 27 and lows of 17. Kampala, Uganda, experiencing light rain this morning at 21, highs of 28 and lows of 18. Partly sunny conditions then later through most parts of today. It's mostly clear in Dar es Salaam at 22, highs of 28 and lows of 22. And those partly cloudy conditions throughout the day. All right, let's look into Johannesburg, where at 15 degrees it's partly cloudy, highs of 22 and lows of 14 today. And in Lagos, 26 degrees, clear conditions at the moment, highs of 30 today and then lows of 25, with cloudy conditions through most parts of the afternoon. Kinshasa at 25 degrees, also experiencing rain this morning, highs of 30 and lows of 25, and we'll see rain through most parts of the day well into Thursday. Going on east into Beijing, it's 9 degrees and sunny conditions through most parts of the afternoon. We'll see highs of 14 and coming down to a chilly low of 1 as they're well into the afternoon at the moment. Okay. Then we'll take a look into Paris, where at 4 degrees, the winter months are setting in. It's clear, however, there will be a high of 11. Sunny conditions later and coming down to lows of 3. And in London, 5 degrees and clear, highs of 11 and lows of 4. Clear skies throughout the day. Mostly clear in New York, currently at 11 degrees and still Tuesday night. We'll go into a partly sunny Wednesday with highs of 12 and lows of 7.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. right. 94.4 Spice FM.
Very good morning to you. Who is online so Fandu?
Okay, good morning, everybody. Lawrence Carrier. Good morning, friends. Thank you. Hope we're all ready for a lesson in politics from the US elections. Well, sure. Good morning, Nakuru tuned in, and that's from Charity Maina. Dr. Skimova, good morning from Malindi. Robert Mbogo tuned in from Mombasa. And from Kisi, Lydia Mabera, good morning. From Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. Melbourne in Australia, rather. Mulama, good morning.
Hey, Mulama.
Yes. And Leban Tanui watching live from Nandi. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning to you all. CT Muga, today's proverb.
A good wife is easy to find, but suitable in-laws are rare. This particular saying comes from, it's a Malagasy, a Malagasian saying.
So that's what? Madagascar.
Yes.
Apo.
Okay.
Wife, easy. In-laws,
In-laws.
Not so easy.
different matter.
Ngumu kidogo.
Yes, because primarily you're not married to them, though they tend to think from time to time that you are.
That you are.
And in our setting, usually, as we know, marriage is not viewed in the Western concept of the two of you. Community.
Everybody.
Yes.
Everybody, including the distant cousin.
There's nothing like distant cousin. It's cousin.
It's cousin.
So long as you can trace even one drop of blood that connects you.
It's cousin.
So in fact, a drop is plenty. Okay? You are related, and that person is your brother or sister.
Yeah.
We don't have cousin in the African setting.
Doesn't happen.
No.
So do you guys do this to your children? What used to happen to the children? When you go to, let's say, the rural areas and there's a family gathering and there are people from, the distant cousins and distant relatives when they come.
Cousins.
You're introducing them to your kids and you're saying, you see this one? The mother of this one,
Gosh.
their grandmother and my grandmother
Went to school together.
That can be tricky.
were related.
That is tricky. You start with the known. Okay? If the relation stems from the grandmother, you say grandmother so and so, you have to be specific because the maternal, paternal. Okay, yes. Okay, now grandmother so and so, the known, had a sister. They're with you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Then you proceed.
Then you come all the way.
Then you proceed. Yes.
Now this is a child of the sister's child.
Yes. So
And that's how you're related.
yes.
You get a headache.
Or
Just thinking about it.
in my community, it gets even more interesting because you can do that introduction and you suddenly find that I have a cousin who is a toddler, essentially.
Yes.
Yes. So I am telling my children, this is either your auntie
Or your uncle.
or Baba Mdogo, because it's not even uncle. And they look and think, this child. So then you have to explain. Or another toddler, and you say, this is actually my mother, traditionally. Say,
Bas.
this toddler.
Yeah, this
And
is
you have
your
to
mother.
explain.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it. This is how we are as Africans. So let's look at the headlines this morning. Want to start somewhere?
Sure. Who's got a tough task ahead of him today? Brace for rallies, ban, shut bars, curfew. COVID cases have increased almost 350% in a month since reopening, but with an economy basically in recession, Uhuru's options are severely constrained. However, he can't just stand by and do nothing. He's expected to call time on the binging going on in bars, ban the super spreader events, i.e. political rallies, and toughen the curfew. But is this enough to slow the virus? And this is on the front page of The Nation today. Many questions being asked at the moment. But at a glance, it looks like political rallies blamed for fueling the spread of the coronavirus. Campaign meetings are likely to be banned. Learners in other classes may not reopen, but those in session expected to continue when it comes to schools. Travel, commuting across the country set to continue, but with tougher measures on social distancing and masks. Curfew, Kenyans face more hours under curfew as president seeks to rein in rise in COVID-19 numbers. Bars and hotels. Clubs are likely to be shut, with restaurants to serve no alcohol, but sale of takeaway booze would be allowed. So many things going on at the same time where we see schools hit by infections, a story we'll look at later. But it seems like a tough choice when the economy was just opened and then this happens. The question is exactly what will the COG decide this morning at this extraordinary session of the COVID-19 summit? By yesterday, the numbers had surged to 57,093.
Yeah.
With these high transmission rates, an economy in the middle of its first recession in 12 years, and a health system on the brink of being overrun, the choices that Kenyatta makes today will greatly shape the remainder of his term in office, according to the nation.
So it's predicting a ban on political rallies, and then what about bars?
Looking at probably the closure of clubs, and saying that
Clubs open.
yes.
Sorry.
Not,
you didn't go?
Not discos and nightclubs. It's bars.
Bars.
Just wondering.
Yeah.
See, the word club to me means nightclub.
It's disco.
Yes, sure, of
Music.
course.
Yes.
Loud. Music.
Dance hall
Dance hall.
and
Thank you.
dance floor. All right. So
So restaurants would serve no alcohol, but you could then buy takeaway.
this
booze.
blame on alcohol, is there anything that is showing that there's a direct correlation between those who have gone to bars and those that have tested positive?
None.
Or even in terms of contact tracing and saying, so we've done our contact tracing and we are seeing that this person was in a certain club and the other people who were in that club around that time
Also
have tested positive. Because I see this as a hit on an industry.
I don't see it
It's
as
just
the
a
reason
direct
why we
one
have
of
the
just-
spread. To be honest, I don't see bars and such as the reason as to why we have the spread. Because if they've been able to give us this other information, number one, about schools, yes, they've been able to give us, look at the counties where these big rallies took place over the last 2 weeks. Those are the counties that we are seeing a surge in terms of infections. Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Kisii.
You see?
Those are the counties that we are seeing these high numbers, right? Again, like you said, if we look at schools, the stories that's talked about today, one school that has 60 students positive, another school in Nairobi that has had 10 students test positive, and then the entire school tested, and just Jamhuri High School waiting then for results today or tomorrow. I would, if bars and restaurants, for example, were to be closed on the reason that people are getting positive as a direct result of being together in one space for a prolonged period of time, then that information also should be out in the public. But we don't see that happening.
If you want to tie the two together, it isn't difficult.
It's not difficult to do.
But
exactly.
proving that it is the case is a different
It's
matter.
it's
very
a whole
different.
matter.
Yes.
We could sit here and say, look, children have gone back to school and we see a spread. We see it, right? You've opened up bars and restaurants and people are sitting and mingling one to the other, and then you have a surge as a result of that. Like you said, you can say, okay, I can see how that would happen. But then to actually see that the numbers are pointing to this, totally different.
You know, when it comes to alcohol in this country, please remember that we touch a certain moral conscience to it.
Yes.
We don't just look at alcohol as something that people take at their leisure.
That's what's
No.
happening here.
It is the devil incarnate and bottled.
Yes.
Okay?
You want to blame you blame your problems on alcohol.
Yes.
This is exactly what the government appears to be doing. Well, this is just it's not what the government has said, but we've even heard statements from the CS in charge of health, Mutahi Kagwe, when he talks about people going to clubs and dancing Jerusalem and demonizing that and saying this is what is spreading COVID-19, and we've shut down some of these clubs. Even the last time the clubs were shut down, really, it's an industry that is the easy one to hit and affect.
Not only that, you see, the assumption is that when people are in bars, now, again, something that alcohol does that we know for a fact is it's a disinhibitor.
Yep.
Okay?
Yes,
So
it
as
is.
people drink, they are bound to slap each other on the back,
Yes.
move closer to talk, etc., etc., etc.
Yes.
All right? But if you go to any of these establishments, the owners of those establishments have created that social distancing with the seating, just to
Yes.
begin with. You'll see it.
Yes, they have.
Okay? So even as you talk, there's furniture between the two of you, or the three of you.
Even saying that hotels then cannot sell alcohol in their restaurants. Surely, this is a proper establishment. They have already done all those things.
They've
that you're
taken
saying.
time to
There
make sure
is
there's due diligence.
social distancing.
Yes.
There are, hand sanitizer stations, and people are sitting far apart from each other. Then you just say you cannot order a drink.
No.
Really.
I honestly
It's a
don't
bit
think that would be
draconian.
the way to go.
Sorry. Can draconian be a bit? No, it is draconian.
It's draconian. And then we see the thing where 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 people are getting into one stadium at the same time to listen to a message that you could have
4,000.
done virtually.
Man,
Come
those
on,
numbers are
no.
huge. And it hasn't happened once, it hasn't happened twice.
It's been happening.
It's been happening. And suddenly we don't talk about this.
And it's very interesting because when the COVID conference took place, we heard Musalia Mudavadi, and he said, you know what, it's us as political leaders who need to take first position in this, and stop these meetings we're seeing, whereby it's so clear that look at those rallies. Can you count the number of people that you saw wearing masks, packaged together like sardine sausages in a pack?
You're talking of the rallies, huh? Just look at the crowds that are there as you proceed to the rally. Then you get to the rally, and then there's the aftermath of the rally at Ilari. Then there are the activities that take place after that. It isn't a one-day affair. It's a 1 or 2 days. My friend, there is more than ample opportunity for COVID to spread like the proverbial wildfire.
There you go.
Yes.
That's just it. I think
and it's been happening. Now, however, the Deputy President seems to have decided to make a point of it.
To take a break.
And take a break and has announced it. However,
let's take a break.
Let's also take a break.
6:30. It's a situation room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's see what's happening on the roads. Who's moving where? And how many are they as they move? That we'll be telling you shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Malindi.
Okay, it's a wet and slippery morning in Nairobi today. We're looking at clear roads on clear situation on Thika Road. It's clear up to Muthaiga, and then it slows down towards the Pangani Tunnel. And there you'll see a buildup of traffic as you're then trying to get into the CBD. Taking a look at Mombasa Road, coming out of Syokimau, that's already starting to build up. Guys, it's raining and the roads are slippery. Visibility is very, very poor in the Westlands area, and then moving out towards Kangemi, towards Kino, Uthiru, and Kikuyu, very, very poor there, and it's actually quite dark. So we're asking people to take it very easy there as you're coming out into the city and also outbound. It's raining in Kitengela this morning as you're trying to get out then towards Mombasa Road. It's going to take you not too quick minute as you're trying to come out, and the traffic is already building up. So we're seeing building up traffic in both sides. We're seeing that the eastern and southern bypasses are open. That can be used without too much of an issue this morning. So we'll give an update about what it looks like. If you also have something that you can share with us, let us know in terms of how traffic looks in your neck of the woods. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on Twitter and text us on 40127.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
What the president decided to do?
Well, he has called off. If I look at page 4 of the Star, but the news is also in the Nation as well. Ruto calls off hustler tours due to rising COVID cases. That is what it says, right? This is the first time a leading politician in the country has actually taken a step and said and declared that we are not going to be holding rallies that we have been calling tours. Stop. We're not having it anymore. Now, it is a good position to have taken. However, if I understand our politics well, what's going to happen, the script from which we're going to be reading is continuously, for the foreseeable future, are the consequences of this particular gentleman, the lawyer Paul Gisheru's, going to The Hague. Everything will move around, turn around, and it'll be explained from that context.
Okay.
Even when there's absolutely, you can look for that connection, you don't see it.
It'll be there.
It will be explained. And it's as though somebody actually figured what I was going to say today and said it before me.
All right.
Oscar Sudi has quoted to say, they have now sent lawyer Paul Gisheru to surrender himself to the ICC. All these plans are done subsequently with the aim to revive the ICC case against Deputy President.
They have now sent.
They.
Yeah, okay.
They're the ones who sent him.
They're the ones who sent him. But who else could it be? It's just them.
It's them. Lawyer Gisheru's lawyer, this is John Khaminwa, says, you know what? I was as shocked as everyone else to learn that the man is in The Hague. I had gone to the courts in this country. I had secured some good orders for him that he should not be extradited. He should enjoy his peace and quiet in this country. Kidogo kidogo, punde si punde. News. The man is in the Netherlands. They're like, When did he go? And then John Hamino says, I reached out to his wife and I spoke to the wife and he said, yeah, we are in the Netherlands. We're here. We are fine.
You seem to suggest that there's a contradiction.
No.
Okay.
I'm just expressing how the lawyer was shocked. He's like, I'm his lawyer.
I don't even know.
He's surrendering himself to the ICC.
Eric.
He has not contacted me as his lawyer.
It would have been more surprising if his wife didn't know. His lawyer doesn't have to know everything. Remember, he did his job. He didn't have to go. But it didn't mean he couldn't present himself, did it?
No.
Yep, precisely.
It's just the shock of a lawyer wondering, Sasa, nani atanilipa?
How is it that he's there and I didn't know?
Sasa. So now, anyway, as you said, this is now a matter that's going to be unfold for a couple of days.
Oh, it will.
Already the ICC has said that they've taken custody of Mr. Gishero from the Dutch authorities after they processed him. And now he's in their custody. And they say the man who was formerly in Kenya. So he left Kenya and went. Hiya. All right. The president is going to deliver his State of the Nation address in Parliament next week, on Thursday next week. In a communique yesterday, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muturi, notified all legislators of the special sitting of Parliament. The Speaker revealed that the House Business Committee resolved the National Assembly appeals the decision of the High Court and the constitutional petition was consolidated. The High Court last week, you know those cases that we were talking about, they have decided that they were going to appeal.
Talking of appeal, remember there was this case in which something that I consider a bit bizarre was the outcome, where the former PS, Youth and Gender, Principal Secretary Lillian Omolo, was essentially told, well, there was some, should we say, details and procedure that were not followed. So that being the case, you are free to go, but for the damages that you may have sought, 1 shilling will be what
sufficient.
Now, part 2 of the story. Yes, still same episode, but just
Part 2.
The Attorney General has launched a legal fight to block the reinstatement of former Youth and Gender Principal Secretary PS Lillian Omolo to the government payroll after a court ruled that she had been removed illegally over the National Youth Service scam.
Basically, what the court was saying that all those months that she's been out, lipa yeye mshahara.
Yes.
So the AG is doing what the AG
should do. Saying no, we are not paying her.
No, not paying.
Yes. And we're not paying, not because we've refused, but we're going to court to say we have refused. Yeah. So the court can also agree with us and refuse.
And refuse as well.
So that we don't pay her.
But you know what? They will pay.
You've looked at this thing. They'll pay.
They'll pay.
All right.
They'll be all right.
Why do you say they will pay? Huh? Why do you think they will pay?
Because by the time this ruling was being made, and they even said that at the time that she has spent out, number one. Number two, all of these things taken into consideration, that she was, illegally or unjustifiably let go of. They bring her back and say, now on top of that, put her back in her position and then pay her for those months that she was out. There's nothing outside the
and
boundaries
then now follow
of
procedure and dismiss her.
But you know something.
If you want to dismiss and not follow procedure, but before you do that, Omo.
Yes, when you're interdicted, usually you're on half pay, according to government. Now, that isn't a court issue. The court may set you free, but then your employer now has to uninterdict you.
Yes.
So even if she's supposed to earn the salary, she'll probably just be earning half of what she's supposed to earn. Now, for those who may not know, the principal secretary in this country earns the gross salary of 765,000 Kenya shillings.
Okay.
So half of that is half of the amount I've mentioned.
Well done. So she'll be earning half of that amount.
Yes, the one I've mentioned.
No problem.
Everybody should do their work. You do the math.
Half.
I've told you the figure.
You figure
it's
it
not
out.
difficult. If half is a problem, it's divided by 2.
Okay. So speaking of numbers, school records 60 COVID-19 cases. Busia Governor Sospeter Obajamong has raised a red flag over increasing community infections as the coronavirus spreads in the border county. Of the 100 samples that were taken, remember Kolanya Boys High School? Remember that one?
Yes.
Now,
Has that dispute been resolved now?
of where it is.
Okay, carry on.
Now,
So is it
according to this story,
Ngoma or?
of the 100 samples that were taken at the Kolanya Boys High School in Teso North,
constituency.
60 were positive.
So which county is that? Busia or
Busia.
Omo, don't disturb me.
Teso, Busia, just so that you understand.
Okay.
The governor comes from Teso. I don't know whether it's north or south or central. Comes from Teso, and it is in Busia County because he's governor of Busia, not governor of Teso.
Very good. So, 60 were positive, with students accounting for bigger numbers at 52. 52 students, 2 teachers and 2 support staff. 6 teachers and 2 support staff. So far, at least 16 healthcare workers in Busia have been infected by the virus, and 152 prisoners receiving treatment. At least 10 people have died in various parts of the county. Addressing the media yesterday, Ojamong said that containment measures of the infectious coronavirus in the country were scaled up after the devolved unit received its allocation from the National Treasury. That is what is happening in Busia. Now, in other schools around the country, and we know that Busia is among the leading counties in COVID-19 infections. In Nairobi, 6 students and 3 members of staff have tested positive at Jamhuri High School. They were self-isolating at home after the test results last week. Following the cases, all students and staff were tested last Monday, and the results are expected today. 2 days ago on Monday. Results are expected today. Nairobi Regional Director of Education said the students will be in isolation for 14 days. They said they've not received any more cases at the moment. In Kiambu County, 11 teachers at Mama Ngina Primary School in Kino, which had lost a teacher, had tested positive. Okay, they've also tested positive. 2 students at Loreto Limuru Girls School have been infected, and 24 contacts were traced and were tested, and they're also awaiting results. So far, schools have been affected, but none has yet been closed, apart from the 2 that we saw closed in Mombasa. Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha has in the past insisted that schools would not be closed due to the cases of infections reported. That was at that time, and we'll wait and see at the end of today how that may change.
And there are murmurs and there are rumors and there are suggestions that not all students may go back to school, but just certain classes may be allowed back in school. I want to see how they're going to manage that one with the numbers of COVID-positive people rising in the country.
Seems pretty dicey, man.
But it's a suggestion. It is not a statement that has been made with any certainty. But I would like to see how that particular thing plays out.
It's interesting because this testing that took place at Jamhuri High School, for example, was just random. 100, and they just said, okay, let's just see what it might look like. And it turned out that they were able to find these when they now made the decision to then test everybody and wait for results. And then they will be able to decide what to do based on the positivity rate that they find after these test results come back.
Okay. Okay. We're still talking about that. There is a story here about lack of medical oxygen that's leaving patients gasping. We heard the story when Nakuru was experiencing a surge in number of people seeking hospitalization. This is also happening in other parts of the country. For example, there's a story here being told of a gentleman called Simon Kirathe who had a relative who fell ill, was rushed to a hospital in Nyahururu, ended up some days later at a hospital in Othaya, which is not nearby. This is the Othaya level 6, the KNH annex at Othaya, because all these other places don't have oxygen. Oxygen should be available, especially now medical oxygen should be available, at least some cylinders in every facility, even the lower level facilities. But the report here is that they don't have. And we're talking about fighting COVID.
They don't have this at Othaya level 6.
Othaya level 6 they had.
Do you know what is
the others
interesting?
they didn't have.
Do you know what is interesting about a hospital like Othaya level 6? You know, it isn't actually managed by the county.
It's a KNH hospital.
Yes. And in my mind, it is a good move. I do not see why every county should not have a hospital that is actually managed.
A level 6 hospital.
Yes, I don't see any reason why not. Because then you're guaranteed that it'll be a proper referral hospital.
And you have proper referral within the county.
Yes.
Or at least within
the region.
Within the region.
Yes. So not everybody has to come to Kenyatta.
Yeah.
Because for the
same way we have level 6s in Eldoret, in Kisumu, in now KU, and now this one in Nyeri. This is something.
The level 6 in Kisumu is managed by the county.
Oh, it's a county. It's a level 6. If it's a level 6, it's national.
Then it isn't level 6. You may call it level 6, but if you...
The teaching and referral.
Yes.
What is it called? Is it Jaramogi?
Yes, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital.
Oh, it's a county hospital.
Yes, it is not.
Okay. I see. So the issue of oxygen is one that let's hope will feature in today's meeting between the president and the governors, because these are the things that you should be talking. Instead of talking about bars,
talk
ask
about
yourself,
increasing
do
your
you have
capacity. Yeah. Increasing your capacity to take care of people who are likely to present themselves at hospital with these symptoms and are going to need help.
But are you aware that is a very difficult discussion to have?
It's difficult.
Because when you have that discussion, you then have to tell us or talk to the citizenry about what you have done and what can be seen to have been done and what is actually working.
Where is our money?
We'll talk about it at 9 o'clock. But you know, the thing is that this is the thing. It is a difficult conversation to have, but it is one that must be had. It has to be had.
Yeah. Let's take a break now at 14 minutes to 7. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We have Nduoko back in the house. CT Muga is in the house, and I'm Eric Latif. We will be talking about the American election at 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock. Now we're taking a look at the headlines. And then at 9 o'clock, we will look at what the president and the governors should discuss today. The areas of concern, the areas of focus. Keep it right here.
Spice FM, Malindi. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
13 to 7, more headlines.
Okay, so universities and colleges begin in-person classes. Institutions for higher learning have begun opening doors for in-person classes in the second phase of the reopening plan. Students in first, second, and third year in universities, as well as technical and vocational centers, resume classes today. This will be interesting. Universities have been recalling students in a phased program as directed by the Education Minister, Cabinet Secretary George Makoha. Final year students and those pursuing science, technology, and mathematics courses reported on the 5th of October. At the University of Nairobi, Vice Chancellor Stephen Kiama said the Senate approved the resumption of on-campus learning from the 9th of November. The institution has been conducting viral defenses of master's and PhD theses. The Nyeri University of Science and Technology, which has suspended online learning, has recalled first years to campus from tomorrow for a semester that ends in the third week of December. So the older students that we are seeing now going back to school, and this happening around the country, Kenyatta University, Chuka University, Jomo Kenyatta University, Cooperative and Egerton universities are yet to recall students in the second phase, but some are. University of Nairobi and others, but others have decided to hold back for now.
All right. So remember the way we were talking about this new report by the UN that was looking at how Al-Shabaab is able to mobilize resources in Somalia. And within a span of about 8 months, they had collected over 3 billion shillings equivalent, right? So now, was it 3 billion shillings?
No,
or
it's
$3
US
billion
dollars.
3
US dollars.
billion US dollars, yeah.
300 billion.
Yes.
In less than one financial year. And we're saying this is an entire government. And it's even doing much better than very many counties in this country combined. Let's just look at one case that was in the Senate yesterday, where the governor of Garissa County, Ali Korane, was put on the spot for failure by his administration to meet its revenue target in the year 2017-2018. They had set a revenue target of 250 million shillings. They only collected 90.
Sorry.
What is half of 250? They only collected 90.
But then I can tell you, half of 250, 125.
Can you imagine?
Fantastic.
These guys are
They
way
didn't even
below
collect
the
half. Okay.
They were way below half. When he was asked, so why is it that you were only able to collect 90 million shillings in an entire financial year in terms of revenue in the county? He cited drought, attacks by terrorists, and a change of regime in 2017. So those are the main reasons.
Okay.
I don't know how a change of regime affected them in terms of revenue collection, but I also know that, there was drought, yes.
Change of government in 2017.
And the drought has been a 3-year drought.
This is that financial year, 2017-2018, because the year began in July and then there was an election in August. So that affected really the operations of the county government.
We said that Al-Shabaab
And that
collects
is his county
$300 billion
government.
in how long?
No, shillings.
In how long?
In 8 months.
They should leave that.
And they're collecting more even now as we speak.
Yes.
Because what Al-Shabaab are doing, they are mirroring every procedure that the government has. Any new way of collecting taxes, they also
They're
implement.
there.
They
They're doing the same.
It's like a tick on a dog.
Yes.
Where the dog goes, so goes the tick.
Yep.
So now this thing is happening. Al-Shabaab is able to do it. They should stop it.
All these counties are unable to raise their revenue, or that's what they report. The Auditor General's report says there was insufficient explanation for the revenue shortfall.
You know, this is one particular demon that is going to follow very many governors in this country. But then the question that I would like to ask is, are we reporting what they indicate as having been received within their coffers, or is it what is actually collected? Because one of the things that has also been pointed out by people who have looked at the finance of the counties is that there is a great disparity between what is collected and what is recorded. Yes. Huge disparity. You have many cases in which the county, a much bigger entity, collects less money than when these entities were municipalities. And you have to ask, how do you explain this exactly? When you have more units from which to collect money and you're collecting less.
What bothers me even more is that these sources through which they're collecting these funds are almost guaranteed, right? We are looking at things like parking and licensing and things like that within the county, because this is where the bulk
Statutory,
of
there's no escaping it.
This is where the bulk of these collections come from.
get
You're not
licenses,
begging people to pay.
Yes.
In order for you to do business in the
licenses,
county,
single business,
you have
whatever
to
you
pay.
want to call it.
Cess.
Now,
You have
can
to
you
pay.
imagine if you put in a plan for counties to now generate income? Would they be able to do it?
There seems to be a deliberate effort in my mind to ensure that as little as possible is recorded.
Yeah.
Because the money does get collected. It's not that it doesn't get collected. In fact, from the earliest times, if you look at researches that had been done, even by a known learning institution in this country like the University of Nairobi, you will find that what was known of the municipalities was the same story.
Yep.
What was collected and what was reported as having been received featured is like a third. 2/3 just somehow evaporated.
And
like
many
mist.
of these counties do not want really to have a very transparent digital revenue collection platform.
No, this thing called automation, they talk about it nicely, they don't want it.
Yeah, they'll always fight it. There'll be one that is implemented here, and then it'll be very, very costly, and then there'll be a license that they have not paid for something else, that then they'll not be able to capture some data. And in fact, even if you think about how counties then come together in terms of regional blocks, why can those regional blocks go into joint procurement of a revenue collection system? Because you can argue that it could be national. The other thing that also affects it is you find a county has a certain revenue collection platform, but now this one is not even compatible with IFMIS. So we'll have issues between the national government, between IFMIS, between the local collection mechanism, but all those things. I was having a conversation sometime with some economists, public finance people, and they were telling me those are some of the things that they're seeing in the countries. And I was asking, so why can't we just get one national revenue collection mechanism? And they're like, hey, every county wants to run its own affairs.
No.
Sour. So why can't you then, as regional county governments, come up, procure one that you're using as a regional block, and make sure, one of the things that you make sure is it is compatible with the national one?
If you want to talk about a deliberate and distinctly deliberate effort to ensure that what requires doing is not done, it's in revenue collection in many of our counties. It's deliberate. This is the avenue. Remember, this is money collected, and some of it is cash. No, let me put it correctly. A lot of it is cash.
Yes.
So this is the avenue through which any nefarious activity that they want to conduct,
They will do.
that's the funding. Whether it's money that is collected in hospitals, whether it is parking, whether it is cess, that money, a good portion of it, a sizable portion of it. So we even have the equivalent of the activities of Al-Shabaab within our counties, meaning you have a parallel system of individuals who collect money for themselves
And they do it very well.
using county structures, but the money is for themselves and their cronies. Now, the question that one asks is, are the governors privy to these things? And if they are, what are they doing about it?
And if they're not, why aren't they?
Because revenue collection pundits and people who are good at they exist in this country and they're doing it.
Let me tell you, if it was a federal system, right, whereby the state only gives you a certain allocation, the rest, even with all these statutory collections, it's up to you. So if you want to run, you will get the money in place. You don't have the money in place, and you know that you're falling behind. Tough luck. It's up to you. You'll get it done. You want to collect or not collect, it's your survival. Sink or swim.
There should
Collect
be a
the
key
money.
parameter in the formula.
But it also paints a very interesting picture when you look at the drive to give counties more money.
Yep.
So it's like the counties don't want to collect money.
They just want money to come.
They just want to keep receiving.
And you know why they're doing that? Is that the political leaders and those that are running the counties know very well how much they can collect. Can you imagine if, let's assume that it's not Governor Ali Korane that he doesn't know, but maybe there are officials in the finance department of the county of Garissa that know that we have not collected 90 million shillings. Let's even say that they've collected half of that, 150 million shillings, half of the target. Let's just assume that they've done that. So the other money is going into people's pockets. You will never want to make this is how you're going to run your government.
Eric, you know, there was a government structure called District Focus. Governor Ali Korane was a DC, a district commissioner during that era. To rise up to that level and to get to the levels he got to in government, he is the one person who cannot be excused for not knowing what ought to be done. He does. You cannot have been in charge of a district.
He knows administration.
He knows.
Yeah.
He knows. You cannot be a DC and not know how to administer. He does. Or how the government works. He knows. And he knows it in intimate details. Someone else, somebody who was probably in the private sector coming in, you could argue doesn't know how the government works. But this particular gentleman, unfortunately, he doesn't get that pass. No, not him. So, drought notwithstanding.
New government in place after 2017.
Notwithstanding.
Just stop it.
Let him just do what he needs to do. Yes. Turn back the tide of the drought and there's no longer new election.
Some of these excuses, you can't continue giving people the same excuses over and over and over again. It's like the boy who cried wolf. Now nobody will even be, at some point when you want to say, you've even lost the creativity as per the flimsy excuses you're giving as to why you can't do what it is that you're meant to do. You even lost that kind of creativity and innovation to come up with a good excuse. Just stop it, man. Everybody just do their job. It's a bit exhausting.
It's not easy.
Oh,
it's not
easy. It is easy.
Heavy the head that bears the crown. But
Eric,
no.
You know why it is
By the
easy?
time you went and stood and said that you could do this, and you told the country to vote you in, Omo.
It is easy in this sense. You are in charge of the mechanisms that collect these funds. You are the one who knows the people you've appointed to these places, because they appoint these people and what they do. You actually have control. Governors have control.
They do.
So when you say you don't know what you're telling us, then you shouldn't have that job.
You shouldn't be there.
You shouldn't be there.
You shouldn't have come to ask people to vote, to give you their vote to put you
because
there.
you're not capable of
because
doing
you're
it.
not capable of bearing that responsibility. But you came and told Kenyans over and over and over again that, yes, give me, I can do. Did you not know that responsibility was going to be heavy on your shoulders?
This gentleman...
You didn't know how deep that drought goes.
That is possibly true.
Remember
that
when
is possibly true,
when Sonko and Igade immediately took over office and they were going around the offices, found some cash office with a lot of cash.
They did.
And they were wondering, so why are you keeping money? Now, this one was a collection, and Your Excellency told you nothing like that. Since then, we still haven't seen a spike in the the amount of money that the Nairobi County government collects. Initially, they bragged that they were collecting more than Kidero's government was doing, and since then, well,
you actually get the impression that the question they were asking is, how is it that all this money is sitting here and I don't know?
Didn't know it was here.
And don't know here doesn't mean I don't know. It means, surely, folks.
Had I known, maybe it wouldn't be here.
It should be in my office. It should not be here in this particular office. It should be in a different office.
Very sad.
All right, it's coming up to the top of the hour. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the situation, monitoring what's happening in the United States as the results of the presidential elections coming out. So we'll be discussing that in the next hour. Good morning.
Spice spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Okay, so somehow at the railway at Donholm, a vehicle has managed to run into the commuter train and brought everything to a standstill in that area. So there's a bad accident that has happened there right around Donholm. Asking people to take it, please be very careful. But now we've already seen that accident has taken place then between Kenya Road and Kenya Rail, unfortunately, this morning. So if headed to that direction, that's what lies ahead. We're also looking at Mombasa Road, where it's building up very slowly, building up quickly and then moving very slowly around Syokimau, then heading towards Cabanas and then out towards General Motors, very slow. It's also very slippery. So again, the call is to be very, very careful. It's slowing down as you get to the tunnel at Pangani, coming out of Muthaiga and then coming down through Survey. It's clear, but then as you get to the tunnel and then on towards the CBD, it slows down. We're going to take a look then at Nyayo Stadium roundabout, headed towards Hu Highway and then out towards Westlands. That's building up slowly right now. So everywhere you look, there are pockets of traffic. We also know that the rain is making this worse. Visibility still very, very poor around Westlands, headed in and out of the city. The eastern and southern bypasses, easy way to get in and out of town or through to Thika Road and Mombasa Road, depending on what area you're headed, what direction you're headed in. So that's what it looks like right now. We'll take a look in about half hour or so. You get stuck somewhere, do let us know. We're trying to keep it moving this Wednesday morning. Text us on 40127 or tweet us, SpiceFMKE.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
There is only one America. No Democratic rivers, no Republican mountains, just this great land and all that's possible on it, with a fresh start. Cures we can find, futures we can shape, work to reward, dignity to protect. There is so much we can do if we choose to take on problems and not each other, and choose a president who brings out our best. Joe Biden doesn't need everyone in this country to always agree. Just to agree, we all love this country, and go from there.
All right, so
I'm
that
Joe
was
Biden.
part of the many Joe Biden ads in the run-up to yesterday's election. And now we are seeing the results coming in. Very many media houses coming in with the results and also reporting. We are monitoring a number of them. We're reporting CNN. We know how CNN is leaning. That is towards the Joe Biden side. And then we also are monitoring Fox News, and we know where Fox leans. In fact, just watching Fox News, you wonder, are the Democrats in this race at all? You know, it's all the Republicans. So the numbers that have come in so far and how it's been reported, you know, looking at only the number of states that have been reported, appears that it's a closely contested race still, with the Electoral College votes. That's the most important bit. Looking for the winning candidate to get 270 Electoral College votes from this election. What is being reported for Biden so far is, what was it? I saw it earlier on the screen. It was about...
we're at 98.
Yep.
So it was 98 to
CNN,
95.
133 on Fox News. So still, yes, there you go. On Fox News, they're saying 207 for Biden, 119 for Trump.
Still a ways to go, though.
Yep.
In terms of counting those
Quite a
numbers
number.
and seeing where things are going. Of course, being called the race to 270 when you're looking at just over 530 electoral college votes that would be counted on the night. So whoever would get to 270 plus one is what is being looked at now. I think a lot of people are finding it difficult to reconcile with those numbers. And why 270? What does that exactly mean? But it's still some. If Biden were to get there, you're still looking at him getting at least 63 more votes in this. 64. If he were to get 64, that's where he would be with these numbers. Okay?
You know what is actually interesting when you look at the U.S. election? It has also caught the imagination of the rest of the world. It's not just an American thing. Now, there's a certain division of business in the UK that has actually been lit up by these elections. The gaming industry, the betting industry. And if I were to go by a report and a discussion that was on BBC, the business segment of it, over 300 million US, so British pounds equivalent, has actually featured in this particular election. You have people putting or betting in as much as $1 million, some $5 million on specific people to win, something that was unprecedented, something that they haven't seen.
Yep.
Meaning, when you have that particular industry beginning to participate in election, in the US, from what I heard and from what I have then consequently read, you cannot bet on an election. They don't allow it. But in the UK, you can. Now, what this tells you is this. It has been considered a sport. It is not different from a football match. It is not different from a horse race. It is not different from a cockfight. It's not different from the many, many things that people like to bet on.
It's a race, it's a competition.
Thank you. That is precisely what it is. But it's a big one. What I wondered as I was listening to this and as I later read was, why would somebody want to bet? Then I figured, wait, no. Someone who takes themselves seriously as a gambler, it's a gamble.
Yeah.
They like to gamble. They've hedged their bets. They've figured it out. They've looked at it. And they figured, you know what?
It is a very clear thing. There's got to be an outcome.
There
and
is
a
going to
winner.
be an outcome, and a clear outcome.
And a clear winner is being announced at some point. So place a bet. Someone will just keep saying, let's bet.
You actually put it very simply. Place a bet.
Just place your bet and see who takes it. The other thing that's quite emerging about this is, number one, and we discussed this earlier, the record number of people who have turned out to vote in this particular election. Then second thing is, even the people who were voting before election date, over 100 million people had voted. 100 million people had voted before the election date. Here we struggle with 17 million people. In this particular, in this country, 17 million people, voter register, you don't know where who has the register, who has a black book, are we using the online? We have issues. Voter identification and verification, going there and finding your name on a list to know which stream you are and what's there for what queue you should join.
You actually told you're not registered in that constituency.
Yes. You're not a voter here. You need to be voter. These guys, 100 million voted.
That's already a third of their population voted via mail.
And now here we are now. People were queuing yesterday to vote, and you've seen no issues. The other thing that also emerged in this election is the way we're seeing businesses boarding up. They are anticipating post-election violence of some sort, some skirmishes here and there, to the extent that the Republican Party has actually moved its monitoring and party from Washington to some undisclosed location because they're anticipating
violence.
Some skirmishes.
Insecurity issues.
Yes.
For them to anticipate it means they have information.
They have proper intelligence.
By the time they're doing that, intelligence has informed that decision.
Alongside that, both sides have actually ensured that they've gathered the legal expertise that they require.
Ready for.
They are waiting for
any eventuality.
Yes, they're waiting.
However it goes.
Yes, they have them ready and they are prepped and they're waiting.
There are very many things that are emerging. Like you said, there are very many countries and people around the world that are also there for watching this election. There are those that are watching the election to see lessons to learn, how you mobilize voters, how you make sure that people come out. Is it on issue basis? Is it on using just some sentiment that whips up people's emotion? However, people come out to vote. And if you just observe in the last 12 years, with Obama 1, Obama 2, and now Trump 1, and now this one, Trump 2, we're seeing the same. It's about get the people out to vote. Rally people to turn up to vote. Turn out the vote was the Obama clarion call. Same thing with Hillary last time and Trump as well. Same thing has happened now, and the numbers have kept rising. One good observation.
You know what is also interesting about the numbers rising? You're not really sure where they're going to vote, do you? Because if you listen, for instance, to the discussions that voters in America have, the thing that strikes me is that people have predetermined positions which they are very unlikely to change in many cases. Now, they will vote for whoever they want to vote for, and whatever else is said, they will reason and they'll use that information to support the candidate of choice.
Yep.
There are those who will vote for a president because they believe this person is a man of God.
Right.
Now, that all caught my attention. And I thought, so when someone talks God, or when someone is anti-something that people who believe they are godly people believe in or don't believe in, that is their candidate. Everything else is not considered.
It doesn't matter.
No. And then there's the historical aspect. There are people who, from time immemorial, have fathers, grandfathers who have believed in a particular party because that party has represented the disenfranchised or in that community, and that isn't changing. Now, what I find, I'm saying it's interesting because they also have a youthful population. But those views are held sacrosanct. But there is something that is interesting in many of these, especially in some of the bigger towns, that the people they seem to find who are willing to change their perspective are women who are in employment, middle class, and hold certain jobs. They are willing to look at this thing and say, no, I'm not moving from the party, but this particular person here doesn't represent those values that I particularly like. Yes. What I'd like to see is when those postal votes start being counted, what exactly it'll demonstrate. Because that, my friend, is a picture that we are not able to see clearly. As yet.
So are you saying that the counties and the states that are already announcing the results, for example, the ones that we are seeing, Florida right now on the screen on Fox News, Biden 5.2 million, Trump 5.6 million, and already Fox News is expectedly calling it for Trump in that and saying he's taken the 29 electoral college votes. Are you saying that those 10 million plus are not inclusive of the postal?
I'm saying I don't know.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. The other interesting thing that has emerged out of this campaign is when you see Americans fearful of the violence and see the violence leading up to this, the kind of back and forth that they had, is what if this was another country somewhere in Africa? What would Americans be saying?
Pause.
What would the news outlets, all these news outlets in unison be reporting?
Why did you just pause even before they started boarding up and having their legal minds together? Just think about the utterances, all right, that have been made. Think of any country on this lovely continent of Africa. My friend, the things that would have been said, the first word to feature would be tribal.
Kabisa.
And condone.
Yes.
And despots.
And then a history.
Let's not even
anti-democratic.
Let's not go very far. Tanzania voted last week.
Yep.
There were eruptions of violence even before the vote. And we heard calls from the same United States, their resident ambassador, saying things about calling off it's unnecessary for this security. The trend of politics in Africa needs to change.
Yeah.
These are the words that we heard last week. Calling, and then after calling for the release of certain individuals then who had been arrested as a result of some of the protests that take place. Again, a clarion call for the elections on the continent of Africa to be seen as free and fair. Already.
Imagine, already. So we want to discuss how this American election is shaping out, and then if this American election, the way it's happening, if it was happening in another country that's not in America, let's say in Africa, how the media would have covered it, how the American government would have reacted. And we're bringing our guest, who's a cartoonist, blogger, and author, Patrick Gadara. Just before that, this is what Patrick had tweeted 2 days ago. Polls are set to open in 48 hours across the U.S. as the authoritarian regime of Donald Trump attempts to consolidate its hold over the troubled, oil-rich, nuclear-armed North American nation. Analysts are skeptical that the election will end months of political violence. Breaking news. African envoys have called for Americans to maintain peace during the elections and to be prepared, accept the outcome of the vote. In a joint statement, the diplomats condemned recent incidents of incitement, violence, and intimidation directed at opposition supporters. This is something that you would have completely expected. Another one. Breaking news. A team of African election observers led by the famed explorer Milton Alimadi, who discovered the Gulu River in Europe, is en route to the seaside capital of Washington, D.C., where they are expected to separately meet with Mr. Trump and opposition candidate Joe Biden. Alimadi, head of the African Election Observer Group, urged U.S. media to be responsible in its reporting and take care not to inflame the already tense situation. We urge American journalists to preach the gospel of peace and acceptance of election results. It just sounds like a script that you have already read somewhere.
I've already heard on
many occasions.
There's one little thing that he should have also mentioned, that the election, the voting process in the entire U.S. were by and large peaceful.
Yes.
People went about their business, and we commend the American people for conducting a peaceful election.
They would have mentioned something else, that there is likelihood of interference from foreign countries. For example, China's increasing influence in the continent, or Russia's also increasing influence in the continent, and what that could mean to this sovereignty of this country, and especially its postal system, that it's still archaic. Patrick Adara, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you on the show, brother. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back. It's been a long time.
It has been a while. Just looking at what was going through your mind as you were tweeting that the other day. I mean, it's just proper satire, and looking at this is exactly how the script would have flipped if this election was happening elsewhere. This is what we'd be hearing from America, from American media, from American government, from American senior politicians and observers. What, do you think that was really fair, or just taking a jibe at them? And really, their situation is not like we've seen in Africa.
Well, I think that first, it is sort of a jibe at them. It is a way of getting back at them. As you've noted, this is how we are covered. This is the language that is used to cover elections, not just in Kenya, but also across Africa, across Asia, across Latin America. All these adjectives like oil-rich country, you never hear them applied to Western countries. So it's always just either Saudi Arabia or Nigeria or something like that. And so it's really important, I think, for us to interrogate the language that is used to cover this. And part of the reason I was doing this, not the first time I'm doing this, I ran a thread on the Brexit crisis using the same, using a similar case, and in the BLM protests earlier in the US. But I think for me, it's really important to flip the language and to interrogate why are these terms used when it comes to us? Why is this sort of push for accept election results, or have credible elections, as if elections in the US by default are credible?
Yes.
And then I think it's far from certain that the US system delivers credible, free and fair elections.
Indeed, and I mean, this is what we see all the time. For example, Alassane Ouattara has just been declared winner of the election in Ivory Coast. And what's reporting in the global media looking like? Oh, he forced his way in. Right?
He forced his way into a third term and was going to force it on the likes of the people to be able to come in, whether it was constitutionally sound or not, whether it was actually the will of the people, and whether the people coming out into the streets of Côte d'Ivoire earlier on, asking that somebody else come in and take the reins of power, was actually listened to. And that again, it would be that the call that came out of a lot of Western nations was that, you know what, it was necessary for the people of Ivory Coast to at least have been seen to be part of the process. And again, calling for a footprint of free and fair elections in the country. Oh, yes.
people of the Ivory Coast.
To be seen to have been part of the process.
Yes.
Okay, this was supposed to manifest itself how exactly?
To continue to urge African nations to do this, to continue to urge African nations, like what you see happening in the United States now. It's very clear that the
to follow in their footsteps, in other words.
It's very clear that the results that we are seeing now coming out of the presidential election is that the people actually sought out and met their constitutional and civic rights and duties by going out to vote. And the only result that you're seeing is that of the voting of the people, nothing else. No kind of electoral fraud or misconduct having taken place. This is actually the result of the people voting.
But this conversation, unfortunately, in the U.S. has not been that. It has been spoken of very loud in the president's camp. This postal system has been attacked and attacked and attacked. It has been called anything that... let me sum it up. It has been called fraudulent, for lack of a better word. So really... where then does fairness come in? Because it's like saying you're predicating an outcome by saying that because of what I am saying, I'm not going to accept. Essentially, a position has been taken. I will not accept.
For 4 years, we saw the Republicans refusing to accept that Donald Trump fairly won that election.
Yes.
For 4 years, the
Democrats,
sorry.
Yes.
The issue, the conversation in America surrounding the election of 4 years ago was, it had been tampered with. There was foreign interference and influence, that Donald Trump was a puppet of this particular win and the entire campaign. That is what was an issue. Can you imagine if this was in another country? Can you imagine if it was in another country and not America, and there were all these concerns about whether that election had been tampered with by a third country? What kind of push would it have been? This is a president who imposed himself on the people. This is a president who was planted by some other foreign forces. The opposition candidate Hillary Clinton would have been the Western recognized president of that country. Because we see that.
For all you know, Hillary Clinton may have been sworn in as the people's president.
Yep. And this is what Gadara is saying. You've been raising this. I mean, you wanted just to flip it and see this kind of narrative, when it comes out in other parts of the world, it takes a different slant. It's the same messaging, but if it's in the United States, then it's a different conversation altogether.
Right. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
we can hear you.
All right. I think there is a trend to a sense in which these things are flipped. But I think we should also be a bit careful about looking at elections, for example, in Tanzania and Cote d'Ivoire, and saying simply because they have problems in the U.S. and these ones are good. I think it's a flip of what the U.S. does.
Yep.
So we've got to admit that there are problems with certain elections in Africa. It's not that all African elections are problematic. In fact, I would argue that lots of elections in Africa are much better than the U.S. And that the U.S. has quite a lot to learn by looking at how elections are run in places like Ghana, and that deliver credible outcomes that are respected by people. When it comes to some of the things that, ironically, the U.S. has been pushing to happen on the continent, from having uniform voter rolls, from having credible election monitoring commission. These things don't exist in the U.S. And then part of the problem that you have, part of the reason Trump, for example, is able to raise issues with aspects of the election is because they are not uniform. It depends on which state you're in. Some states will be counting these votes 3 days from now, others 9 days from now, others will include it today. So it's quite confusing. And I think the U.S. needs to re-examine its own system and understand that it's not what it has been portraying itself to be, the shining city on a hill, the paragon of democracy. It is not. As they have focused on democracy in other places, they have forgotten about democracy in their own country. They have a system that has encouraged an authoritarian to take on. for public officials to be unaccountable. And at the same time, they're talking to us about accountability. So I think it's time they stop pushing what and drinking.
Let's take a break at this point. We're speaking with Patrick Gadara. He's a cartoonist, he's a blogger, he's an author. We are looking at the American election. The results are coming in, being reported by various international news outlets and also local news outlets in the States. Seeing what already is coming out in some areas, it looks like a very closely contested race. So, for example, Fox News saying that Biden has taken Arizona and therefore taken the Electoral College votes there. The race is for 270 Electoral College votes. So far saying Biden has 218 and Trump 148. So how is it going? How is it going to pan out? This is a conversation that we're having right here on Spice FM and KTN Home and online. Keep it right here. Let's look at what's happening on the weather and the roads, and then we'll be back.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM.
You want your car to perform flawlessly? We set it as our goal to make sure you uncheck your car's engine from your problems list. Forget about residues. Forget about overheating. Forget about corrosion. Our fuel, Optimum, keeps your car's engine as clean as ever for optimal performance. Optimum of Ola Energy, ultimate protection.
COVID-19 imeimpact lives za wase wengi sana. Watu wame lose jobs kutoka mama mboga, business owner next door, neighbor amefungiwa hao na landlord. Pesa imekuwa mteja, haipatikani hata ya kuweka chakula kwenye meza. Ili kujenga jirani, unaweza toa suu moja, 100 bob only, na hii inaweza badilisha maisha ya Wakenya wengi sana. Na usisahau kuungana na sisi for the Jenga Jirani Charity Festival 7th and 8th of November on KTN Home, na pia itakuwa online on www.jengajirani.org. See you then, ili tujenge jirani and show some love.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo
looking
soul.
at showers for most parts of Nairobi today. Highs of 23 and lows of 16, and the showers continue well into the evening. In Nakuru, 17 degrees at the moment, mostly cloudy conditions. The rain will come back later with highs of 23. Rain showers forecasted for most parts of the day, looking then into lows of 14. Into Nyeri, 15 degrees rather at the moment, and mostly cloudy. Highs of 21 and lows of 15. Rain showers going through most of today as well. In Eldoret, 13 degrees and mostly cloudy. Highs of 22 and lows of 13. Will have sunny conditions in the afternoon. In Kisumu, 20 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions. Highs of 29 and lows of 20 with mostly sunny conditions through the day. Kakamega, 20 degrees, highs of 29 and lows of 15 with partly sunny conditions throughout. In Mombasa, 24 degrees, light rains at the moment. Highs of 29 and lows of 24 with sunny conditions later on. In Malindi, 20 degrees and mostly cloudy, highs of 27 and lows of 17. Taking a look into Kampala, it's mostly clear at 21, highs of 28 and lows of 18 with mostly sunny conditions later on. And then looking into Dar es Salaam, it's 22 degrees and partly sunny, highs of 28 and lows of 22. And then in Johannesburg, it's partly sunny at 17, highs of 22 and lows of 14 with mostly cloudy conditions later. And finally, for now, in Lagos, it's rain showers throughout at 25, highs of 30, mostly cloudy conditions, and then lows of 25. And we'll wrap things up for now in Kinshasa, where it's light rains at 25, highs of 30, light rain throughout the day, and lows of 24.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Traffic.
Okay, so we're looking at heavy traffic this morning on Thika Road, and the rains are coming down in sheets today, guys. So it makes traffic all the much slower. Looking around and seeing what else is happening. Traffic is also building up on Mombasa Road, heading then towards the city centre. Not as good as you'd like to see it this morning, especially with the rains. So again, the call is to be as careful as possible. There's a couple of accidents that we've seen this morning. We'll give you details of those as we go along. But as you approach getting back into the city, you need to be very, very careful. There is, again, an accident on Thika Road on your way to town, just between Muthaiga and Utali. 2 vehicles, 1 Matatu and 2 larger vehicles today, unfortunately. That's taking place. If you're approach with caution, because you don't know what lies ahead. All right, we'll give you more information as we go along. Got any for us? Let us know. 40127 is how you can text us or tweet us, Spice FM KE.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
For too long, Washington flourished, politicians prospered, the establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. That all changes starting right here and right now. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. It's going to be only America first. Buy American and hire American. No challenge can match the heart and fight and spirit of America. We will not fail. Our country will thrive and prosper again. We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth. We will be protected by the great men and women of our military and law enforcement. We will bring back our jobs. We will bring back our borders. We will bring back our wealth. And we will bring back our dreams. We will face challenges. We will confront hardships. But we will get the job done. Together, we will determine the course of America and the world for many, many.
It was brilliant.
Run up to this election.
It was brilliant. It was a brilliant ad for sure.
Very well worded, right?
Yes.
I liked it. I like the part where he's speaking to the people as though he's not the president.
In fact, at some point I wondered, was this the 2016 ad,
campaign?
or was it,
yes.
Or was it a 2020 ad?
You get the impression, yes.
Yeah.
It's like this government is really not for you. They don't seem to.
They don't connect with what
they
you're
don't
saying.
connect with what.
It's not what you.
Well,
yes, Gadar.
I think it's taken from his inauguration speech.
Yeah.
The art.
Yeah, actually, yes. That's exactly it. That was a point when he was now promising, I am taking over. This is what we're gonna do. All right. So the election so far, according to CNN, the results. CNN is already calling it 192 electoral college votes for Biden, 114 for Trump. Looking at the results as they've been coming in, Gadara, so far this morning, and even the voting process itself, the conduct of the election itself so far, what do you make of it?
Well, I think it's very familiar, at least to me. It looks very much like a Kenyan election, I have to say. Although I've got to caution people, because lots of people have been saying that this is America's African election, and as we've said before, many African elections are run better than the U.S. one. But still, this looks familiar. Where you remember in Kenya, we've always had this really strong turnout on voting day, very peaceful voting day, and the problems come when they start counting and tallying. And I think that is kind of similar to what we are seeing now. Also, remember in our elections, we have these waves where perhaps one candidate starts off, is winning, is leading, and then there is a wave that comes later that kind of sweeps him aside or something like that. That's happened in 2007, and that can be a cause for people to start claiming fraud or going onto the streets to demonstrate. I think the U.S. might be looking at something similar, where, and they've been warned about this, that there's lots of votes that are yet to be counted, and people will build up leads, and there might be an idea that, remember Trump was saying that everything should be counted on by the end of today.
Yeah.
Yet, even in previous elections, counting has gone on for 1 or 2 days. So there might be a call, but if it's a very close election, you might not know the winner today.
Yeah.
So if somebody decides that to make a premature call, and that was a fear, that either one of the aligned news stations might decide to make a unilateral call, of who has won the election, or you might have a difference between media houses about who has won what, and that might inspire people to dispute the election and perhaps violence. So I think that they have to be, just to finish, I think they've got to be more patient. I think we've got to wait. People will build up a lead, etc., but I think it's very advisable to wait until pretty much most of the vote is in.
Why do you think this is happening in this particular election in a way that you have never seen it happen in the US before? And I'm talking specifically about the calls that if things do not go in a preferred way, if things don't come out in the preferred choice, then you would see this result of essentially protests, right? Again, which could give rise to the reasons why many people have said an African election taking place in the United States. Because, this is some of the things that we have we have been used to rather, whereas somebody is not happy with the results, what you essentially ask for is some protests of some kind. We've never really seen it taking place in the United States before. Why do you think this has come out at this point in the manner in which it is happening?
Well, you've had a disputed presidential election in the U.S. before.
Yes, but before the result has even come out, there have been calls for this, that if the result comes out, we would not be accepting of such. That you've not seen in a manner in which you've seen it now.
I think I haven't heard, at least personally, that, sure, Trump was saying that there cannot be a credible election where he does not win. Mm-hmm. But I think he has kind of walked back that rhetoric. Today he was interviewed, I watched it on CNN, and he was saying that it's a close fight, that winning might be difficult. So he's actually giving room for the fact that he might lose.
Is he really?
So yes, I think there is a bit of walking back of the sort of bombastic rhetoric. Remember, there was even a suggestion that he might declare victory even before he got to 270 electoral votes.
I think it wasn't even a suggestion, Kazara. I think he came right out and said that's exactly what he would do.
No, actually, he didn't. He actually denied the report. Did
he say that like on video? Like there's video?
No, it wasn't on video.
It was reported that this is what he said.
That's it.
It was somebody who was part of his campaign who, basically a leak from his campaign. Somebody had suggested that's what was going to happen.
Yes.
But he's walked that back. I think that pretty much there is an expectation that when a call is made, people will accept it. Now, the issue, I think, is with litigation. If this goes beyond today, and Trump has said that he is going to litigate it, and he is, during the campaigns, has spoken of the Supreme Court basically as his trump card, if you'll pardon the pun.
Sure.
I think that's where there might be an issue. If people start contesting votes in particular areas, if it gets up to the Supreme Court, then there will be a question as to whether that court can rule credibly, whether people will believe what it says. You remember in the 2000 election, they gave a really weird ruling. Basically, they stopped the recount in Florida.
Yep.
And they said that their ruling was not any sort of precedent that other courts should use, which was really, really strange. So I think that whether or not the Supreme Court is going to be believed if it rules in Trump's favor, assuming this goes to litigation, will be the linchpin. And I think they might end up in a situation as we did here in Kenya in the 2013 election, where the Supreme Court essentially undermined its own authority by being seen to be unable to stand up to the executive.
Are we looking at a time where it could be now a globally accepted thing that the almighty United States goes through the same electoral process problems as other countries on the globe?
Yes, I think we're already there. I think people have already seen in the last 4 years that the U.S. is not any sort of, how do I put it, a paragon of democracy. That it is a country like any other. It's got its problems like any other. And I think even its moral authority to kind of preach to other countries has been severely undermined. So we are there. And I think we need to think about this in the context of the international system, because the system we have today was built by the U.S. and it is predicated on the U.S. being this sort of central nation, and I think this raises questions about what happens when it is not there, when it doesn't occupy that space. In fact, when people were talking about the possibility of violence, I think it's receded somewhat now. I mean, there was a question about what happens when you don't have the U.S. as kind of the linchpin state, when it goes into electoral problems, when it goes into violence. Do we have that can contain that? Given it's got a veto at the UN, are we going to be talking about sending peacekeepers to the U.S.? It's got the biggest military.
I don't think it may get to that. I don't think it may get to that, Mr. Gavara. But the truth of the matter is that the U.S. has represented a civilization that is in decline. That is my view. And with civilizations, when they decline, or with the powers of nation when they decline, you do see the breaking up of norms that had been considered not just sacrosanct, but things that would last the test of time. Unfortunately, they never do. Now, anything that is uttered by a leader like, say, the president, you've said that he's walked back on it, but the effect has already taken place because he has said it. He walked back on issues of the mask. He wore it and then threw it out. There are many things. Trump has consistently said things which are inflammatory and then walked back on it. His followers, I don't think, even pay attention to the walking back. They pay attention to what appeals to them. And so, if there is damage that we can claim has been done, in my opinion, damage has already been done.
Yeah, I completely agree that the damage has been done. My question was whether or not Trump would refuse to accept an election that is declared, assuming, let's say, Biden today gets to 270. I think unless there is an actual court dispute, litigation about some votes, I think you're going to see one of the candidates concede. But still, I would accept that, yes, there has been damage to the status of the U.S. And my question is, how does the international system cope with this? And again, we've got to ourselves ask, who replaces the U.S.? If it is China or if it is Russia or some other country, is that good for us, for countries like ours, or is that bad? And I think we need to figure this out. We need to have a discussion about how the international system itself works and the things that it is predicated on. and to understand, as Muga says, these are things that can change, and when they change, what should we do about it? And where
like
will
you're
that
saying,
lead?
Patrick, that the world then should be working together to shore up this democracy that's the United States, because if we help it to stay afloat, then it's good for the world.
Well, not exactly. I'm saying that, yes, I do think that we should help the U.S. with this democracy, because I think democracy is fundamentally a good thing. But the way the world is structured, with the U.S. as they call it, the indispensable nation, is problematic. And I think this is the extension, if you will, of the discussion on the Black Lives Matter movement. Because in the U.S. they're saying that when you have this system where whites are on top and blacks are below, and it is systematically enforced, that's a problem. But in the international stage, you have the very exact same system, and these whites who are on top are essentially the Western world, and the system operates on the predicate that these countries will always be on top. They are the developed ones. We are developing to be like them.
But Mr. Galera, the laws don't actually state that. The laws are actually non-partisan. If you look at most laws, it's the practice that we see that raises the alarm in most cases.
I would disagree. I think
please disagree.
The way the systems are put up, the laws we have, at least that control the international space, the rules that we have on the international space, seem to be applied not in an nonpartisan
Precisely.
way. For example,
the application of it.
Right. And if you look at how easily countries like the U.S. can escape the rules, let me give you an example. The Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty stops the rest of us getting nuclear weapons. But it includes a clause that the countries that have nuclear weapons should be getting rid of them. But you never hear them talk about that clause. That's not implemented. That is ignored. So we've got to relook at that law and at that rule and ask, why should we be the ones who are sticking by it if they are not going to keep up their end? And it's the same way if you look at WTO and how the rules work and how Africa is always relegated to this space where we are unable to export finished goods.
But would you say that the US here owns the piper, really owns, not so they can call the tune? For the longest time, they've been the country that is known to always give out aid. They when it comes to research, they fund more than anybody else. They've taken a key position in actually being big brother to the rest of the world. They send their armies in places that have problems. This is something they've done more than anybody else has done.
Right.
So when you're in such a position, often you will see accompanying this dictatorial tendencies. And this didn't begin yesterday, telling you this is what you must do.
All right. But when those things, when their status starts to change, then let's have that conversation.
But that's the beauty of the conversation. We're actually having it because then we don't help, we learn. These are systems made by people, by human beings, to serve a purpose for a particular period of time, and sometimes they don't.
So I guess then the way in which it should be going, the direction should be taking now. I think there are two fronts. I think there's just not one thing that you look at. So there's the side of saying the world has been looking at the United States, Gadara, as this leader for the longest period of time. Now, if things are starting to crack or things are starting to burst open at the seams, who then do we look to who's going to take this leadership position? Number one.
Must we look for leaders?
Number one. And then on the other side of the conversation, then is, should we always then look to one person or one group who is going to lead the world? And why can it not be that everybody then is learning from things that we've seen in the past in terms of who to look up to, even if it is yourselves?
If you don't have a leader, then what do you have?
I think these are two sides of it that we can look at.
If you don't have a leader, what do you have?
I think you also have to think about the way the national system works. And it's in essence an anarchic space. It is not run according to sort of, there's one set authority that polices things. So countries act according to their interests. They can ignore international law when it suits them and when they can get away with it. That's why the US is not bound by any of this, as Muga has pointed out. So if we start thinking of running the international space the way we run states, so there is authorities that we empower to take certain decisions, and that everybody is bound by the same rules, then that might change.
This one world rule may not necessarily happen in my lifetime, Gadara,
exactly,
but it's a lovely idea, though.
Which one?
What he's suggesting, you see, the
You have
UN,
a global parliament.
Yes, the UN is supposed to serve that purpose.
Which unfortunately
the incidences that we've seen on this planet, which we have brought on ourselves, led to this. League of Nations, then the United Nations. But if you look at the countries that we consider to be powerful countries, it's because they have grown internally mechanisms, systems that ensure that they can look after their own, and in doing that, they even have an abundance which they can share with others.
Sure, and just on that point, because I mean, again, Gadar, a lot of these countries who you look at as being world leaders, they seem to have gotten it right in terms of economic development, for example, within their borders before they can then go outside and do this.
But this is where I would dispute it. Lots of the countries that are up there are colonial countries, are countries that benefited from oppressing other peoples, that took things from other countries, from other regions of the world. So it's not the fact that they are better custodians of the economies, etc. They simply are better robbers. And I think,
but they also know how to keep whatever it is they've built for it, don't they?
Sure, they've been able to develop it well. We have people who've stolen on this side of the pond, but have not been able to keep it at all.
Well, the truth is, if you look at the scale at which the theft was perpetrated and the time that the length of time that it was done, I mean, it's nowhere comparable with what has happened within here. And then don't forget who it's being taken from. These countries, such as ours, that are suffering, are the ones that were being robbed. So
actually, it isn't past tense, Mr. Gadara. We are still being robbed.
Yeah, we're still being robbed. That's true.
And then that's testament to the powers of those countries.
And that's why when I talk about having a discussion about the international system, is to recognize some of these things that are still going on, some of the colonial extractive systems that the international system we have today, whether it's trade or even aid, etc., is built on. So if you look at Africa, for example, the amount of money that is taken out of Africa is tiny compared to what they give us back as aid. But yet we are told it.
Therein lies the problem. This dependency on other people helping us solve our problems, as though we are completely incapable of solving problems which we ought to know about because we create them for ourselves.
I would dispute the idea that we create them for ourselves. We have found lots of these systems there. And don't forget, we were put into an international system that set us up to be primary producers for the economies in Europe. That is what we have continued to be.
And are we shackled to this? We don't have any opportunity to get out of this?
We are shackled. We are very shackled. When you look at what people like Lumumba, when they start talking about undoing this system, what happened to them, that tells you that you're shackled. When you look at what France does, with countries in West Africa, it tells you that you're shackled.
And there's no way of getting out of this shackle. That's what I'm asking. There is no way or making a conscious decision or effort to say that we are seeing the situation in which we are in. We can continue saying that we're put in a system like this, or we can now go about making moves to change what it is that we see, or continually singing this lullaby about being shackled and staying in that position without making any moves to get out of it.
Now, recognizing that the system exists, that is not saying that we can't get out. But the first thing we need to do is to recognize it, is to understand what it is we are trying to get out from under. Unfortunately, the way we are set up today, we kind of keep replicating the mistakes that were made before. And there is real reluctance because you do have people who win. So Nyeri said that the moment you've got a multiplication of people with motorcades, 6-gun salutes, etc., you're not going to get unity in Africa because those people already have an interest in keeping it divided.
Yeah.
And we've got, at a continental level, elites who have an interest in keeping things as they are because they earn a lot by doing that. So what we have in countries is a microcosm of what's happening across the continent. And I think until we sit down and we say, how do we start true, proper decolonization? How do we get out of the colonial system that was imposed on us and that continues still today to extract from us? And until we have that conversation, everything else is window dressing. And unfortunately, our politicians are very good at distracting us with other discussions other than the one we really need to have.
You really hold on to this, Gadara. Every time you have a conversation, you will always veer towards that. The extractive system that was imposed on us.
But it's the truth. That is what is there. And we keep running away from it.
A very valid one.
It's a very strong point, yes. Whether everybody
but it isn't
agrees
the
to
only
that.
game.
Yes.
Yes.
Gadara, thank you very much for speaking to us today. And we will invite you again to have more and more conversations. Always a pleasure having you.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Patrick Gadara is a journalist, he's a cartoonist, a blogger, and author. And we have been looking at the US election. We are still looking at that. Elections coming in. We are also monitoring major news outlets, Fox News, CNN, and the rest. CNN is already saying that, according to their own projections, out of 270 electoral college votes needed for a win, 205 for Joe Biden, 114 for Donald Trump. That's 205 for Biden, 114 for Trump. This is according to CNN projections. But more and more results coming in, and other news outlets will be looking at that in the next hour. Good morning. Time for us to take a break on KTN Home. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 87.9 Spice FM, Mombasa.
We're still here on Spice FM and online, Spice FM KE, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and www.spicefm.co.ke. In the next hour, we speak to somebody who's in America. He's a Kenyan. He's in America. He's in the States. And he has been monitoring the campaigns. He's been monitoring the voting. He's been monitoring the count now. And he'll be telling us what's happening from the ground, wherever he is, he's barricaded himself in anticipation of this post-election violence that we've seen, on the news outlets, and there's anticipation of some post-election violence in some areas. This is a conversation that we will have. However, listening to just what Gadara is saying, we have a country that for a long time has been there, has been the beacon, and then there are all these questions that are emerging in that. What does it point to? And what then is it that the rest of the world should do and learn?
Well, I think it's very clear in some lessons now, for example, because what you see, I don't think you're seeing cracks in a system. I think you're seeing wide, gaping, open holes that have always been there, but unfortunately have been covered for the longest time by their ability to then help the rest of the world because of financial muscle. And I don't think it necessarily meant that the foundation was completely solid. But we got the impression, as the rest of the world, everybody got the impression that the foundation was solid because of what they were able to do with the financial might. And I think then it should be very clear to the rest of the world that even anybody, any country right now that presents themselves as a power today will never be in that everlasting position. If you can say never speak in absolutes, but okay, we'll never be in that absolute everlasting position. And no country is going to ever be clear and transparent about the position that they are in politically or fundamentally. They won't. So I think it's for us to see and say that really who leads the world at a particular point in time, whether that be economically, whether that be with what they're able to do when it comes to government and leadership, is not going to be in that position forever. And I think it then behoves a lot of other nations to take it with a pinch of salt. Sure, when things are called out and say, look, you must have, free and fair elections and things like this. You must take the rule of law into consideration. You must take human rights and things like that into consideration. Yes. But I think now it's going to be looked at or should be looked at with a pinch of salt to say, where is this message coming from? And you who is giving us these housekeeping rules, do you have your house in order?
What gives you the right to talk to us the way you're talking to us? It's an interesting conversation. Keep it right here because we'll continue with it in the next hour. 205 for Biden, 114 for Trump, out of 270 electoral college votes needed to win this outright. But this is according to CNN. We'll look at other outlets and also what they're projecting. Good morning. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. It's now 8 o'clock.
Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM.
Okay, so we're still looking at jam-packed morning on Mombasa Road, leaving out of the city, off Mombasa Road into the city. It's blocked all the way from the SGR through into the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. Okay, so yes, there's been a terrible accident. Also, Modern Coast bus burst into flames at Masimba on the Nairobi-Mombasa highway. Some passengers are trapped in the bus at the moment, and the cause of the accident or the cause of this fire has yet to be established, and waiting for emergency services and police to get to that area, and it's affecting traffic, of course, leading, and this happened just over an hour ago. And so that, just to recap on that again, a Modern Coast bus burst into flames at Masimba on the Nairobi-Mombasa highway, and unfortunately some passengers are trapped in the vehicle waiting for emergency services to help, and those who are on the side of the road are actually trying to help at the moment. Okay, so as you may approach that area coming away from there, please approach with caution so we don't have another one. So this is the one that we're looking at, another one between a trailer and a lorry on Thika Road this morning. So quite some. It is quite slippery on the roads today, so asking everybody to be extremely careful. On the eastern and southern bypasses today, we don't have much traffic. It's looking okay, but the temptation is to speed. Please don't, so that you don't get stuck.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
8. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room. It's the only way to start your day. It's also the best way to go about your day. City Muga, as we begin this hour, what is today's proverb?
Well, today's proverb, a good wife is easy to find. However, they actually said but. Suitable in-laws are rare. It's not that you can't find them. It's a bit difficult to find them.
A good wife is easy to find.
Easy.
However,
the package deal that comes with a good wife, it's called relatives. Those ones, they're there, but most times you don't see them.
But they're there.
They're most certainly there.
Okay.
Yes.
So improve your vision. And
The variety that you see are the ones who fall in the category of not good.
Not good.
Yes, those ones you see in abundance.
All right. Still talking about the election in the US, and what's being called so far and what's happening so far. So many people had voted. Record-breaking numbers had voted before election date. Many went into the vote yesterday. I mean, overnight they've been voting. Some polls are still open. Next polls are closing in about 57 minutes in some parts of the country. Some have already started counting. Some have already declared, finished counting, and already some news outlets and observers are declaring winners here and there and in many other parts. So it's looking like, it's neck and neck so far, if we just call it. It's neck and neck.
I actually find this, what is happening in the US is something that is being studied even as we speak by many other people. And even as it's studied, is something worthy of discussion. Because when you talk about the planet and you talk about the people in the planet who are ensconced in geographical regions, which we call countries, we forget that these are just people. They're human beings like any other. So when human values and interests change, or when they come to the fore and we see the manifestation, the problem isn't the manifestation. The problem is when it changes from the norm, something that you are accustomed to, or something that you believed that perhaps this country or the individuals within this country subscribed to or represented themselves as having or as subscribing to. Then you see a change. Now, if that change doesn't fit into the previous narrative, then it's disturbing. And when someone who is the leader, a president, you see, we judge this president, we don't know him. So what we will judge him by are by the utterances that are attributed to him, and then the actions which follow. That's what we have. And then we also listen to people who analyze these things and tell us what it is that they think. And then, if we can, we also use our own brains to figure out what on earth is happening.
Yeah, based on what we've been able to see and consume before then.
Yes.
Sure.
Heavily dependent on our capacity to use our brain.
Yes, we have it, but whether we use it or not, that's a completely different matter. Or what we use it for.
What do you see so far, though, from what you saw in the campaigns? Very many people coming out. Those who are for Trump are strongly for Trump. Those who are for Biden are strongly for Biden.
Yes.
And then coming out even in the polls and even in the media houses. So this is the other thing here. Media houses coming out and saying, I mean, this is our slant. This is where we are. Is that good? Leaning. Is that good for democracy?
It's excellent.
When media then comes out and shows that this is who we go for.
It is excellent for democracy.
How so?
Because it shows you the variety of democratic processes that exist. You see, the understanding and the thinking and the belief that the way in which the Americans manifest their democracy is the only way. It isn't. It isn't. If democracy is intended to benefit, to put it really simply, the people by either listening to them, doing things that benefit them, in keeping with what they have indicated they need, okay? And that they participate in it, then that is not the only way to participate. And what we are seeing now is precisely this. They themselves, I am certain, the Americans that is, are questioning this system rather than wondering, should we not think of probably rejigging this system? The biggest complaints has been the system. This postal system, we're hearing it loudly now because their president has made it an issue. But it has existed from time immemorial.
And also Corona has made many people want then to use the system.
To use it.
Precisely. So and they have used it, statistically speaking, with very minimal problems. So why should this be now a very big issue? And yet, if you were to quote people who are experts in electoral law, they will tell you, and I will read and I will quote, okay? This is, in my opinion, Edward B. Foley, an Ohio State University constitutional law professor, says election night tallies are always just preliminary, pending certification of the canvass of the returns under the law, which takes time. Every state has a law on this point. This differs significantly from what the president was reported to say. Counting ballots, did I say ballots? Yes. Ballots for weeks, Eric, this is infectious, this is you. For weeks after election day is totally inappropriate, and I don't believe that's by our laws. Now, in my mind, a discussion has been opened up. Let's talk about these laws. I don't know these laws, but now I'm having to read and to find out what do these laws exactly state, understanding that many states have their own specific laws about this very process.
How an election is declared.
But you know, interestingly enough, it's the way in which we're interrogating and dissecting and having this conversation now. If you want to look at just the carriage and the character of the American people, and we'll hear this now, they do not interrogate or dissect in this manner, except for those who are at the government level. And that's just, your average American is not going to sit and interrogate. Your average American knows that they can vote by mail. That is what they're going to do.
And that's it.
And they believe in the system so much so that they believe that there will be no flaws in the electoral process and that whomever has been declared winner after the process is the winner. This whole interrogating the mail system and whether it is free of any kind of fraud or holes or anything like that really doesn't happen at the level of the average American who is counted upon to deliver those 300 million or so odd votes. It doesn't depend on them.
But don't
and they
you
don't
see
bother
the
with
beauty of that?
And it's great, actually.
I see the beauty of that because
nobody gets, it doesn't become a fuddled process.
When I keep arguing that the problem we have in this country is not with the systems and all, it's with the personalities. You see what's happening? The people at the top, they are the ones who come back with this other narrative that the system is rotten, that the system is not working for us. So they inflame the citizenry. If the people at the top also sit back and they see,
let the system work.
Let the system work. The voting has started. People have cast their ballots. There is counting. There is declaration of the winner in accordance with the state laws. That's it. You lose. You take up.
You believe that the system has delivered the right, and then you say, "I concede."
I concede.
Let's move.
Or you go to court. You want to challenge this. You go to court. You follow the process. If now the conversation is emerging because the political leaders are raising questions about the system. Trump is asking, "Wait, do we completely and 100% trust this postal system?" Those on the other side have come up and said, is there a possibility that this postal system could be interfered with? The last time, it was people being manipulated in what they thought and what they believed to be the right candidate. And now the issue is the system itself being interfered with by some other external forces. The leaders at the top are raising those issues. And now that's when the people at the bottom are wondering, okay, so wait a minute. So really, should we trust this system or not? It's about the leadership.
But does it really change the way they vote? Not really.
They still voted.
You see, the way I see it, what seems to be significant was significant when President Obama was president of the US.
Mm-hmm.
One, more people than even in Obama's time have come out to vote. The numbers alone.
Yep.
So one found that what they call traditional states, whether it was red or blue, traditional, there were changes in those dynamics simply because there were more people voting than had ever voted before. More people came out to vote. So just the numbers alone can change what was considered to be the norm. The numbers alone. As to whether the rhetoric, the narrative, the campaigning will change the minds of these extra people. Because there are other people who probably presumed that they understood the direction it was going to go, so they did not bother to vote. And that also had consequences. It looks like the discussion of people not voting, that has become a completely non-issue because people are definitely coming out to vote, and in large numbers. Now, my mind is this. That's where this electoral victory or loss will hinge. These new people who come in to vote, will they be significant enough in number to change what is anticipated? Because you can hear of people within the Republican Party who feel they don't want Trump, but what are their numbers really? You can think there are people within the Democratic Party who think Biden shouldn't, but what are the numbers really? But these large numbers that we can see voting, it's what they do. Now, secondly, this postal system that clearly has been at the center of debate, a system that has been there for the longest time. When the votes come in and they are all counted, what I'm raising then will become apparent because you will tell these were the votes that were cast through the postal system.
Sure.
And those numbers alone, I think, are significant for someone to say, look, what is being done today on election day can't be it. 100 million votes, you cannot just shoo away and wish away. They're significant enough to change the outcome. So they must be counted and they must be considered.
Let's bring in a guest now for this hour, and this is a Kenyan who is in Long Beach, California, Mukurima Muriuki. He's a partner with MBS Conflict Resolution Group. This man has been living there. He's been observing what's happening in the campaign period. He's been observing what was happening in the early voting, and now with yesterday's voting or overnight voting, and with the results also coming out after the counting. Mukurima, good morning.
Good morning. This is good evening for me because it's 9:15 p.m. Pacific time.
All right. So let's just, for the purposes of uniformity, shall we say hello?
Hello.
So not good morning or good evening or good night.
That's fair.
Hello.
Fair enough.
So, Mukurima, you have been there. You've been observing as the campaigns have gone on. You have also been commenting on various platforms, including your own website and other social media platforms as well, giving your opinion of it. So far, we were looking at what we have seen in terms of the reaction of the general population in America, especially looking at the number of people who have come out to vote so far, even before the actual voting day. What does that tell us?
The first thing, reaction that we can tell is that Donald Trump is very popular in America. And no matter what people say about his style, his tweeting, is that he is a very, very popular candidate in America. That's the first thing. We have to give it to him. The second thing is that comes out is how wrong the polls were. Because if we were to believe the pollsters and what they had said that the outcome would be, some had said that by now would have known who the winner is. But going maybe 5 hours since the first state closed their polls, we still don't know who will win this election. So there are still things that we are learning as the process goes, but so far I think what we are learning is Donald Trump should not be underrated.
And Mukurima is saying Donald Trump should not be underrated. Well, this is something that even the Trump supporters and those close to him have been saying, you know what, this man got elected in the last election by many people. And those very many people, there are not many who have said that, yeah, we have lost faith in Donald Trump, or we judge him harshly because of what he promised to do and what he has been unable to deliver. So, and then there's now those that were supporters or are supporters of the Democratic Party and therefore the candidate who gets the ticket, and this is in this particular case is Joe Biden, and therefore even those have been many. Those have come out in large numbers. But what Mukurima is saying is clearly, as the narrative was being put out there that, you know, Donald Trump is losing trust, is losing the support of many of his core supporters, and they're moving to Joe Biden, and now therefore Joe Biden is a candidate who is going to have ataichukua saa mbili asubuhi, as we say it in Kenya. This may not necessarily be the case.
Look, I think also, like you said, because Joe Biden is a Democratic choice, that's why you have a lot of support. And on both sides, there are very many people who do not necessarily, and this is what we've seen also from reports that have come out, who don't necessarily support Donald Trump, but are looking to get him out. And so the option that they have, or the choice that they then have, is in Joe Biden. So not necessarily that they're trying to vote him in, but they're trying to vote Trump out. And that we have to look at how that comes out. It comes out into play. So you find that there's so many varying levels of support here when you're seeing that. Yes, there's some people who said, look, we believe that Trump has done a fantastic job and we want him back again. We believe he's done an awesome job and we want him out. There's on the side of Biden, we feel that he is the one who's going to come in then and help America get back to what it was and get the wheels of steel moving once again. Or those who feel, okay, it's great that Biden is a wonderful guy, etc. We don't feel that he would have been the best Democratic choice. However, rather than leave Trump there, we'd rather somebody else come in and take over. So I think there are varying levels that we see here as well. And then, of course, again, just looking at the psyche and the normal operation of the American people, there are some who just don't give a hoot. We have an election. It's true. We have an election coming up. Let's just carry on the way so we can move on to the next thing. And then we can't take away from the reality that very many of those people exist in the United States at this point.
Their numbers, however, are not significant enough to determine an election outcome. No. People feel that their president determines what happens to their lives, and they will want to participate. The president has been called divisive or divisive, some people call it. But the truth is, Eric, and this is something that you pointed out. You see, this is an American president, and it's Americans who are voting for him. And there is a section of Americans who want this sort of president, who makes the sort of utterances that he makes, who sees the world exactly as he does, and they feel this is someone they can resonate with. And those people are many. That is just the reality. And I think Mukurima has actually pointed that out. It is true. It's just a fact. You may not like the fact, but it is a fact.
Was there a sentiment, Mukurima, that many of Trump's supporters were going to move to Biden before the election?
I don't think it's a matter of Trump supporters moving to, or Joe Biden supporters moving to Donald Trump. What actually the reality is that most Trump supporters do not talk about who they are supporting. Actually, there was a poll that was done a few months ago that said when respondents were asked, who do you think your neighbor is supporting? Interestingly enough, 55% of the respondents say that they think their neighbor is supporting Donald Trump. So I think there is that kind of inability for people to come forward and say, hey, you know what, I'm voting for Donald Trump, because there is always the consequence. We have seen in the recent past when people associate themselves with Trump, you have seen the cancel culture where people have had their businesses, they have lost business because they associate themselves with Trump. So I think that has also permeated into the psyche of people insofar as they are not willing to declare who they are supporting. And granted that we have seen in Florida, a state where many polls were saying, it's Joe Biden's to lose, Trump actually doing better than he did 4 years ago, then I think it's a repudiation of our society in terms of how we embrace people who have a different perspective to what we have.
Knowing that it is the numbers of voters who come and essentially give their consent to the Electoral College to vote in the United States election, who then vote who the president will be, do we find people going to the vote even at the electoral level, voting on issues or voting on personalities in the United States?
Right now the people are suffering economically. That's for sure. At the same time, 250,000 people have died as a result of COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So there has to be that balance of, do people want the economy to be fully open, or do people want the COVID-19 to be contained? So it depends on the state that you go to and who you're asking. Because if people are dependent on going out and making a living, then most likely they would want Donald Trump, who has said that no, America cannot close down. While Joe Biden has been saying, we have to shut down the country for a little bit as we figure out how to respond to COVID-19. So I think when it comes to policy, it all depends on what are the specific interests that voters in each state have in mind.
Yeah, sure. I think it's interesting to look at, just through your crystal ball, if you can, and say that what happens after this election, whomever it would be then, let's take it from the point of the citizen. If it was Donald Trump, what are then we likely to see in terms of change when it comes to particular issues? I mean, I know this, he's been big on the immigration issue. He's been big on economics and making America number one again within the country and then also in the world. And then you look at the other side, where Biden has continually talked about, sorting out the race issue from the very bottom, working on things like a health system which cared for the whole country, working on issues of unemployment. So depending on which candidate you see coming through, what are some of these issues that Americans are hoping will be sorted out if it was Trump, if it was Biden?
Looking at how Trump has been in the last 4 years, I wouldn't hold past him not to be a vengeful president in the next 4 years, going after those who launched the impeachment against him, going maybe after Dr. Fauci, who has made comments that Trump may not like in terms of how the federal government has responded to COVID-19. I wouldn't hold Trump, I would still think that Trump goes hard on immigration issues. You have had where his administration locking up children and separating them from their families and locking them in cages. So I still think the dystopian kind of policies that Trump has adopted in the last 4 years will still continue as he tries to create a world as seen from the lens of Donald Trump and not from what logic and common sense dictates. But at the same time, on the flip side, Joe Biden has said that America has to go back to what its soul is all about, and that is there has to be leadership across the world, showing leadership across the world, showing empathy to people who are suffering, and also maybe even giving stimulus, a stimulus package to people who have suffered economic pitfalls of the effects of COVID-19. So how that I think is the short term of how I see both candidates responding if either wins the presidency.
Let's take a break here at 24 minutes past 8. We're speaking to Kenyan Mokorima Muriuki, who's in Long Beach, California. He has been observing what's been happening in the states during the campaign period, during the voting period. He's a commentator on social issues, has been commentating on various media outlets across the globe on matters social from American perspective, and especially focusing on the continent of Africa. We are seeing a statement, a news update on CNN Live this time that Joe Biden is set to make a statement shortly. So Mukurima, also as we observe this, maybe you can pull up some of your sources on the ground and see what is he likely to be talking about. I mean, what is this going to be? So let's take a break at 25 minutes past 8 on Spice FM, on KTN Home and online. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Okay, it's continuing with rain showers in Nairobi, 16 degrees at the moment. We will see highs of 23 today. In Nakuru, 17 and mostly cloudy, highs of 23 and lows of 14. It's mostly cloudy in Nyeri at 17. We'll see highs of 21 and lows of 15 today, and a chance of rain to continue throughout the afternoon. Eldoret at 14 degrees is mostly cloudy, highs of 22 and lows of 14. Kisumu at 20 degrees. That will be the low today. Highs will be 29 and mostly cloudy conditions, at least for the moment. In Kakamega, it's 20 degrees and mostly cloudy, highs of 29 and lows of 15. Mombasa, it's light rain this morning, and that continues for most parts of the morning, well past noon at 25 degrees currently, highs of 29 and lows of 24. Malindi is mostly cloudy at 20 with a chance of rain very soon, highs of 27 and lows of 17. It's 21 degrees in Kampala and mostly sunny at 21, highs of 28 and lows of 18, with mostly sunny conditions throughout the day. Partly cloudy, partly sunny in Dar es Salaam at 23, highs of 28 and lows of 22. Johannesburg is warming up, mostly cloudy, however, at 17, going to highs of 22 and lows of 14. In Lagos, Nigeria, it's 25 degrees. The rain showers continue, going into thunderstorms later with highs of 30 and lows of 25. And finally, for now, in Kinshasa, at 25 degrees, it's light rain throughout most of the day with highs of 30 and lows of 25.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
Traffic.
Okay, so that bad accident that happened further on Mombasa Road today is affecting traffic all the way through to Kitengela and then out towards the SGR through to Cabanas and General Motors. It slows down then again right around Bellevue and then towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. Okay, so looking like a tough one this morning, guys, on Mombasa Road especially. Also on Thika Road as you're coming into the city, note that at the underpass at Pangani, that is moving very, very slowly today and picking up on traffic. Surveytor Town is bumper to bumper, not moving at all. So let's take that into consideration as you're getting in and out of the city. Eastern and southern bypasses, however, can be used, not a problem. There's traffic jam along Outer Ring today as you approach Donholm, and the question is what is happening? The answer is that a vehicle rammed into the passenger train this morning. So the train has stalled and they're trying to get that sorted out. So if you are not using, or if you were using the train or planning, you have to get off of that one. Okay? So quite some things happening around the city today. We're asking you in all of this to be very careful. Spice FM KE, talk to us on Twitter or text us 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
Early predictions coming in from the U.S. election, 29 minutes after 8. So CNN is saying, according to their own prediction, according to their own reading, out of 270 electoral college votes needed, Joe Biden has 205 and Donald Trump has 136. Joe Biden to make a statement shortly, and this is the breaking news. scrolling on CNN and other major news networks. We are speaking with Mukurima Muriuki, who is a Kenyan living in Long Beach, California. He's a social issues commentator. He's been observing what's happening in the electoral campaigns in the States. He's comparing this to what he saw 4 years ago, what he saw 8 years ago in the Obama campaign, and also looking at the kind of conversations that have been happening in the country. What we see is from the international perspective, we also are able to glean into what the locals are saying. Now let's have that conversation of how then that could impact the outcome of this election. So far, Mukurima, you're saying that what is emerging out of this election is that contrary to what some people may have believed or may have thought, it wasn't going to be a very easy win for Joe Biden to push out Donald Trump. From what we are seeing, though, is that it's still Joe Biden's race to lose.
Yeah, I'll still think, Joe Biden wins the election, but I would not be surprised if Donald Trump is reelected. That's how, tight the race is. But a few weeks ago, if you told me that this election would be as close as a nail bite as it is right now, I would have told you, you're joking. It underscores, what they say that a day in politics is a long, long time, and you cannot write off any candidate. So, there are a lot of votes, to be counted in Georgia. They have about 830,000 votes from Hillary Clinton strongholds, and maybe 140,000 votes to be counted from Donald Trump strongholds. So, that could change the trajectory of Georgia. There are still a lot of votes to be counted in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin. And if, for one reason or the other, Joe Biden wins Georgia, then it's over. It's over for Donald Trump. So there's a lot of votes to be counted. It's still early. I know perhaps because we have always, maybe by right now, we know who has won the U.S. presidency. But this time around, it's taken long. That's why kind of people are nervous, are confused on what's going to happen. But I think there are a lot of votes out to be counted.
From CNN, we breaking news. Joe Biden is likely to make a mistake. Do you foresee that? No, Joe Biden
is likely to make a statement.
Yes.
Yeah.
And is it likely that the President Trump himself may also wish to make a statement?
Make his own statement.
Yes.
Trump is a showman, and he likes to embrace anything that casts him as the macho man, as a champion. So most likely he will watch what Biden says and then try to counter that in the usual Donald Trump element. But I doubt he speaks maybe after Biden. I think he'll maybe wait until much later, watches how the Rust Belt, that is Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin are going. And if one of those states goes to Donald Trump, I see a situation where he declares himself a winner, just as it has been reported that he will do that even when all the results have not been counted.
Why are those states referred to as the Rust Belt?
It has to do with the manufacturing, history of those states. That's why they are called the Rust Belt of America.
Okay, they've been big on manufacturing factories and so forth, which means they're also big on employees.
Yes, and you've heard they have been. The policies there have to do with, who is going to bring the auto industry back, who is going to bring jobs from China in terms of companies like Ford and other auto industries. So it's always big on such kind of policy. It's also this as the states that are very concerned about, policies to do with China, steel and how Trump is negotiating with China in terms of tariffs. These states come into play a lot when it comes to Trump's or America's foreign policy, most likely, especially with China.
With Trump coming into power, we did see that the foreign policy of the United States then towards other countries changed quite some, when there was now a lot more insular attention for the US. Now, do you think now those who support Trump at this point are actually really going for this make America great again? Do they follow what it is that he's actually been saying, or are they following the man?
I think with the Trump, you have to follow the man, because he's not known to keep his policies. If you look at some of the policies, including building the wall and Mexico paying for it, most of his promises have just been that, promises. So I think most people tend to just keep Trump the man, because they don't want to go on his other side, where we know he can be very combative and he can take it on anybody who tries to go against him. So for Trump, I think it's a lot of goose stepping and trying to bootlick, as opposed to following the man for what he stands for.
And still talking about the foreign policy, and with specific attention to Kenya, how do you think Trump's foreign policy has impacted Kenya?
I saw the other day the U.S. ambassador to Kenya posted a photo of the ventilators that have been delivered courtesy of Trump's what you may call foreign policy. And I remember hearing Trump in Pennsylvania saying that a lot of the ventilators that were manufactured in the U.S. were sent to countries in Africa that needed them a lot. So it was a coincidence that the next day the U.S. ambassador tweeted a photo of the ventilators having made their way into Kenya. But having said that, I don't think Trump has impacted a lot of Kenya's foreign policy. Perhaps maybe the construction of there have been an infrastructure negotiation and deals with President Uhuru Kenyatta when he was in the U.S. maybe in the last number of years. But I think beyond that, I don't think there is much as Trump can say he has contributed in terms of how the U.S. relates with Kenya. And maybe also needs to look at not just how Trump relates with Kenya for Kenya's sake, but how also his policies impact Kenyans living in diaspora.
Yeah.
Because there's a great constituency, and most of his policies, which are dystopian in nature, which include tough migration policies, have affected African immigrants. To be sincere, and when he does that, it affects also the immigration of most Africans, including Kenyans in America. So I not only look at his foreign policies in the purview of what Kenyans in the motherland benefit, but also in the sense of how do Kenyans and Africans in America, what are the consequences of Trump's local policies, because they impact a lot on our immigrants from Africa.
Indeed. Mukurima, we want to thank you very much for joining us this morning. Mukurima Murioki is a Kenyan. He's in Long Beach, California. He's a partner at MBS Conflict Resolution Group. Has been a social commentator on various issues on various media houses in Africa and beyond. Asante sana, and we wish you a good night as you continue watching what's happening in that country.
All right. Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
So the conversation continues right here as we continue monitoring what's coming out of the polls in America. 8 years ago, by this time, actually, about, let's say, 12 years ago, the first Obama campaign, by now we'd already known and people had already called it for Barack Obama. It was already celebration. Even in the country, by this time, President Mwai Kibaki had already issued his congratulatory message. People who are watching the election from the U.S. ambassador's residence were already celebrating. Us guys on news and radio were already having conversations on what is this? What does this mean now that we have a Kenyan in the White House? We're already having those conversations. And now we are a long way from knowing who is going to take this election.
In fact, what was of interest is that people who are commenting on the Obama victory said, wait, these Kenyans are as happy as though the election took place in their country.
Kogelo had erupted by now. You know, it was already clear that what is happening, it's big. Our son is now the president.
You know, the representative value is something that, and this one I'm going to talk to the politicians again, seem not to pay keen attention to. It's not that they don't understand it. Because how is it that someone you had not probably even heard of before he started running for president in America, and then you were told about him? He had been a senator, he came here, not too much of a fuss, he's a senator. He came from Kenya, okay. Then he vies for the presidency. He wins. Suddenly, you cannot be more Kenyan.
No, yes, no. Not to claim.
It's not African American, he's Kenyan American. Now, we have the same issues with our leaders. When someone is voted in whatever position, we can't help but identify because it's a position of prominence.
Yep.
But then there's a responsibility and the influence factor that goes with that particular position that often is completely neglected. The power of influence.
It's a big thing.
No, it's a massive thing. It's a massive thing. Because people don't think that when you're in a position of leadership, you should act as a role model. You should.
You should.
And if you can't, then don't go into public leadership.
You need to inspire people. You need
Yes.
to make people aspire to something, to higher ideals.
Oddly enough, your behavior, whether it's higher ideals or not, is followed.
Oh, for sure. Anything. Look, by the time you get to that position of, if you in that position, that means that there were a majority of people, however you want to look at it, there were a majority of people who put you there, right? So by virtue of that, there are a majority of people then who are looking up to you, and every word that falls from your mouth is seen as crumbs under the proverbial table that they're picking up and consuming everything that you say. And so you can't just take Trump, for example. The things that he said that some people thought for the longest time obnoxious. How could you have somebody like this at the seat of power in the United States, arguably one of the most powerful countries on the face of the earth at that point, right? How would you have somebody like that sitting there? But if we continue to say that leaders are a reflection of the people, then guess what? The person that you're talking about being obnoxious is the people that have put him in there.
It's the people's choice.
That's their choice. And that's who they've put in there. So any word that drops from his mouth continues. Even some of the things that he's said that people have said, how could somebody who's sitting at the point of leadership say things like that? Well, guess what? He's speaking the minds of very many Americans, unfortunately.
Listen to the narrative that we've had in this country for the longest time when someone who has been pointed out by our judicial system or our legal system as having done something wrong. Hey?
Motivate too.
What? The best defense usually is, but what about?
Yep.
They are not discussing what the person has been accused of. No. It is, why are you picking on us?
You're targeting us.
Yes.
Just because he's allied to so and so,
yes,
doesn't mean that you should go. You should also look at the others.
Yes. And the discussion about what is at the is not had. Now, with such a mindset, you know what you then are doing? You are setting the stage for that example. And you are telling people that, you know something, it is okay. So long as you have support, my friend, you can just carry on.
Just go ahead.
Yes. Why do you think we have so many people, in my opinion, always vying for some political position? Because there's a feeling this thing gives you impunity.
Yeah.
And it also gives you immunity.
Yep. Especially the latter.
Yes.
Well, listening to what the question that you asked, Trump's foreign policy and how that foreign policy impacts Africa, and then what would this election impact Africa? How would it impact Africa? So Joe Biden was vice president some 5 years ago,
right?
Under the Obama for 8 years. Now Trump has been president for 4 years, and this is what he's been running. How would you compare the Obama administration's policy and relations with Africa and Trump's 4 years policy and relations with Africa? And not just in Africa, the continent, but with people from the continent who are also in America. How would you rate that, CT?
I would begin by asking what was the expectation, because the reaction is actually based on the expectation and whether what they have seen in the Trump administration falls short of their expectation or whether it meets the standards that they had set for the expectations. For instance, if people who are accustomed to receiving a certain amount of financial aid or development aid in a certain, in certain amounts over a period of time, if that was cut, then they would automatically feel this particular administration is against us. They are not for us. Even if there was a policy in place which states categorically that at a certain point in time they will be withdrawing that support as it is stated. So That's number one. The second thing is this. Whenever people talk about foreign policy, and I'm not being specific here, I'm speaking generally, they forget that the person who has that foreign policy has it so that they can benefit
themselves.
Yes, it's not meant for you.
It's not about you. It's the foreign policy that affects you, yes. However, it is about how they will operate outside the borders of their land for their benefit. So here, look, if you want to look at Trump's policy, which is what you're asking, Eric, vis-a-vis the policy of the Obama administration, look, the Obama administration's policy was lent towards that, was lent towards, again, still being that caring global partner as the United States, whereby they chose to fix a lot of things within the country, from healthcare to the issue of immigration to the issue of terrorism. They dealt with that.
Yeah.
And so rather than come out as an attacking figure as the United States, they came out as a hand-holding big brother kind of thing. Trump came in and told you, the rest of the world, what he was going to do. Didn't mince his words. Now, said that he was going to make America great again, meant that his foreign policy was going to be directed towards anything that was going to make America
that
great
he
again.
considers will make America
Exactly.
great again.
And he didn't mince his words. He said, this is what we are going to do. Immigration, we're going to build a wall between the United States and Mexico. We don't want these fellows in here. We are going to make sure that anybody who's coming to the United States, there are certain things we're going to put in place. All this immigration story, people come and get green card visas, we're going to curtail that. We want the jobs to be for Americans. We don't want this huge influx of immigrants because we want Americans to be able to benefit. He told you. That's why you started seeing the huge drop in funding for a lot of programs that took place in different parts of the world. That's why you could see he could be so bold when COVID came in and he would say about the World Health Organization, okay, things are not going in our favor. Guess what? We want to make America great again. Things not going in our favor. Okay, we're going to slash our funding even to the World Health Organization. Let's see how you're going to be able to operate. So really, it's not about the rest of the world for this policy, for any policy really. It's about you as a nation. Kenya's foreign policy is not to benefit the UK, for example. Kenya's foreign policy is about how Kenya is going to benefit on the global stage.
In its association with?
In association with other countries. The United States would seem to be more bullish about it because, yes, they have the financial muscle and might and such. And they've also got a record of being there on top of things for the longest period of time. But the policies, if you can ask me, different night and day. Night and day. And if anything, the fellow said this is what he was going to do, and he did it.
In that respect, he's a man of his word.
Yes, in that respect. In that respect, yes.
Joe Biden is already delivering his anticipated address, and he's sounding all bullish. He says, we believe we are on track to win this election. Some of the words that are scrolling on CNN that we're monitoring, we believe we are on track to win this election. We'll be telling you exactly what Joe Biden has said once he finishes, and then we get our newspaper to give us the briefs of what exactly he has said. So back to the issue of the impact of whoever wins this election on Kenya. So America and Donald Trump has negotiated with the President Uhuru Kenyatta. They've already gotten into this position and saying the AGOA agreement is coming to an end. Now, what we pick out of the AGOA agreement is this direct trade agreement between Kenya and America that has many issues. Already the negotiations have started. Kenya-America trade agreement that is specific. Kenya-America, America coming to work on the infrastructure. When you had a conversation with the U.S. ambassador here a couple of months back, he was telling us, look, what we have done over the years and what we continue to do is there is no change in terms of a reduction of our relations in how we relate as Americans and Kenyans. In fact, we have been boosting how we engage as Americans and Kenyans. Do you expect that there's any president who's going to come and reverse any of the gains that have been made over the years by a Republican president, by the Democrats, but now another Republican who's been in office for 4 years? Any likelihood of that happening? Maybe not. Highly unlikely. But it's important for us to look at whatever is happening in America from the context of how then does it impact us? Why should we care?
Remember, if you're talking about AGOA or if you're talking about PEPFAR, these were programs that were set in place not yesterday, not the day before. AGOA was 2000. PEPFAR not long after. And I know about PEPFAR specifically because it was under George W. Bush. Okay? It's a Republican president.
Yep.
And it is the one program that universally, and I mean throughout the world, helped tremendously, more than any other program other people have had,
Sure.
in alleviating and ensuring that people who are suffering from the pandemic then called HIV received the appropriate care. And it was a comprehensive approach.
Single-handedly by the United States.
Yes, there is nobody else who even approached it or even matched the vigor and the comprehensiveness and the manner in which the U.S. handled this generously throughout the world, and mostly countries that were hardest hit. Now, when you talk about policies, again, you have to look at the time and you have to look at what at that particular point in time is important to the people who have that policy. Then the questions of why they have that policy can come into play.
Sure. CT, at the same time, people will say that the United States, for example, will always have a friendly policy towards a country like Kenya. Because if you look at the region and you look at the space that Kenya holds in the region, if you want to look at around the continent, usually slim to that they will always have a friendly policy towards the countries that seem to be stable in the area and then also have a strategic position geographically. Now, if you look at Kenya with its access to the ports and then what it's been able to do in terms of reasonably good stability, they will always be a friend to Kenya. The United States always will. Now, again, foreign policy for their own good as the United States. However, along with foreign policy then comes with the necessary friendship, whereby you can't just come in and say we're going to be friendly to you because you have such things that would help us in terms of our global reach and dominance. That's great. But at the same time, there's a part of policy that asks you to at least be a little bit heartwarming to the people that of those countries, right? So if you want to take advantage of the port, if you want to have access in times of war and things like that as the United States, the countries through which you're going to do this, then you must find a way to be friendly towards them. And that's why we see a lot of the things that we see, especially with the aid and things like that. It doesn't mean, however, that these things do not benefit the people of Kenya. It doesn't mean that they don't come in as a much needed hand. I mean, some of the things that we've talked about, funding through PEPFAR, the initiation of things like AGOA, which again, single-handedly by the United States to make sure that trade and things like this continue to flourish, because they say, okay, it can't just be one-handed, right? Because at some point, these folks are going to wake up and realize that things are only going in one direction. And you need it to be flowing in both ways. So yes, I mean, I think it would be foolhardy or even myopic to say that, okay, an election is going on in the United States. Who cares or how does it benefit?
You should care.
You should care. You should care because there's so many things that have been done historically. There's so many things that will be done in the future that would benefit the people of Kenya, number one, or strengthen ties, or things that are happening and you didn't even know were happening that if were taken away, people would suffer from.
Have we not discussed the blood donation?
Look at the blood banks, for example.
Yes.
Happens all the time.
The problem that you're suffering now because of funding that was removed.
Time for us to say goodbye to our audience on KTN Home who've been with us since 7 o'clock. Join us again on KTN Home from 7 to 9 tomorrow morning. It's now 7 minutes to 8 o'clock. Just to give you an update of what Joe Biden has been saying. He's been speaking in Delaware. He says, we knew that this was going to go long, but who knew we were going to go into maybe tomorrow morning, maybe even longer. Joe Biden, he was telling his supporters, we believe we're on track to win this election. Of course, you expect a number of reactions just from that statement. We believe we are on track to win this election. Trump had earlier alleged that he's already seeing that he's winning and the Democrats are trying to steal the vote from him. There are those who are from Trump's camp and other observers who are saying, so what is Biden doing by coming out to speak like this, speaking as if he's already declaring that he's won the election even before all the votes have been counted? He's saying, we believe we are on course, we are on track to win this election. It's just weighing to say, I'm winning.
Sure.
I've won. So whatever happens between now and the final election result, I have won. Still has more than 50 electoral college votes
to go.
To go, even to clinch, even by CNN's projection, which is saying Trump has 165 and Joe Biden at 215. So this one is going to be a long one.
Sure. Just quickly, Trump has hit back on social media where he does best and says, we are up big, but they are trying to steal the election. We will never let them do it. Votes cannot be cast after the polls are closed. So he's alleging that people are trying to vote even after the closure of polls.
He's hitting at the postal voting system.
Yes,
because those votes have not all been counted. And traditionally, they are not counted on the same day that people cast their votes.
He's actually even talking about others, other who have voted after
polls have closed.
See, he brought in a new conversation.
Right.
It's going to be a busy one. So anyway, 6 minutes to 9. Let's take a break. Goodbye, KTN Home. See you again tomorrow morning.
Spice FM, Nyeri.
The two statements by these two leading contenders in this election, they point to something. So Biden comes out and says, we knew we were doing well, but who knew that it was going to be this long? We knew it was going to be long, but we didn't expect that it was going to take us so many hours for the final result to be apparent. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We are on track to winning this.
Right.
Trump as well says we are doing very, very well, but I'm also calling out in some areas where we think that they are trying to rig out an election. This is whipping up emotions.
It is, unfortunately.
In fact, the AU leadership should be sending a statement to them and saying we urge the candidates to keep quiet and allow the process to go on.
For the results to come out.
Wait for the results.
And then urging at the same time that regardless of the result, that everybody should be able to accept and
the will of the people.
Exactly. And essentially move on.
You see, again with the mail system, sometimes the mail doesn't arrive on the day it is posted.
No?
And yes, it arrives maybe a couple of days later.
Sure.
And there was an issue about counting these votes. All right? Now, Pennsylvania and North Dakota, their highest court said it is okay. You can extend it. Simply because of the way this thing works. And the Republicans had gone to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld the ruling of the justice system in these two states.
Hence, Trump says this is the way of them trying to steal a vote, taking into consideration some very basic things that you would expect me to be able to understand because of the fact that the mailing system is a little bit slower. That's why it's called snail mail. It's a little bit slower than you going and casting your vote immediately electronically. That you would take into consideration that, first of all, so many things attributed to this mail system being so voluminous this election. Sure. Number one, COVID comes into play. Not as many people are going out and voting because they realize, okay, we want to stay away from the crowds and such because of corona, right? So more and more people voted as a result of this via mail. Now, taking that into consideration, realizing the dispatch system within the United States so vast and intricate at the same time, you got to give some time for space. The judges could figure this out and say, let's give it another 2 days. Okay, we understand. But according to Trump, what is happening is that you give it another 2 days, you're allowing more people to vote even after the polls have been closed.
But remember, what the mail system handles ordinarily still goes on. Huh?
The postal system still
working. And then you don't burden it with this new
100 million.
Yes.
Yes.
So surely, it doesn't matter how you look at it. If it was slow then, as people would refer to it, how much slower do you think it's going to be now?
But you see, it then turns to a whip up of emotions because then people are going to say, hold on a minute. Essentially, what you're doing is that you're allowing people vote. Whereas that's not what you're doing. You're allowing the process to carry on, whereby these votes that have been mailed over time, because people were still voting via mail up until a week ago.
Is that not what we'd call in this country incitement?
Definitely.
But guys, let me ask you, all right? If it was Trump who had come out to say, we believe we are on track to winning this election at a media conference at his campaign place, would there be media houses that come out to say, see, we told you?
Yes.
He's already declaring himself the winner.
Yes.
But this is the same thing that Biden is doing. Is Biden declaring himself the winner? Is Biden preparing his supporters for a win and a contest should there not be a win?
Well, you know what he's doing is that he's going with the numbers. That's what he's doing, obviously. He's going with the numbers that he has seen at the moment. But I think they're both doing that. I think both of these statements...
He made this, by the way, this speech that he has made was spoken of long before even all these numbers we're talking about has started coming in. I think it's a reaction to what Trump has been saying. Remember, all the litigation teams that they've had in place, you start building your case early. Trump has been saying theirs, they're saying theirs as well. If you ask me, this is a reaction, if you ask me. Given everything that Trump has said. I mean, Trump can be relied on to say some of the most insidious things you can think of. Now, how do a postal system that belongs to your country in which you are president, and here you are demonizing it regarding a process that has been there from
As
time.
Trump talked about the postal system today, he's not referring to the postal system. He's talking about polls after polls closed.
The only
Voting
polls,
after
the
polls
only
closed.
votes that can be considered to be counted after the polls close are the ones which went
The
through
only
the
ones
postal
that
system.
can be considered to be coming in, even not being
There's
counted.
no other.
Coming
It's just
in
that.
is just from the postal system.
It's only that. So he doesn't have to call it the postal system. He just needs to say it, and you know exactly what he's referring to.
But how do you know that's what exactly he means?
Where else?
Or
would
what
votes
else could
be
he
coming
possibly
in?
mean?
Where
That
else would votes be coming in at this point?
No, Eric is thinking like a Kenyan.
That there's some physical
that there's somebody
votes.
who's rigging somebody.
Eric
that,
is thinking like a
there's-
Kenyan.
Stuffed ballot and all
Yeah,
those
but
kind
Eric
of
is thinking
things.
like a Kenyan.
Yeah, yeah. And America is basically showing us that it's also possible to think like a Kenyan.
You know, Eric, there
Let's
is
go to
not.
the top of the hour. Let's go to the top of the hour. We'll be giving you updates from the American election. In the next hour, let's talk about our country. We have COVID-19 rising. We've got the President of the Republic meeting with all the 47 governors of the Republic of Kenya. They'll be having a conversation because of the surge in the number of COVID-19 cases. And then they'll be anticipating what happens in November and December. What decision will be made today? Keep it right here. We'll be discussing that. It's now at 9 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, yeah, so some serious issues
Traffic.
still on Mombasa Road, all the way down through, coming out through Kitengela. We had that terrible accident. Now we have emergency services on the way, at least trying to rescue those who would have been stuck in that bus that burst into flames this morning. The reason, we don't know why, but that affects traffic all the way down to Mombasa Road. So it's looking about being a messy morning today. Coming off of Thika Road, a couple of accidents there as well. Please, guys, be careful, but it's affecting traffic. It's not moving in certain parts. It's a bumper-to-bumper situation all the way past the Safari Park Hotel. So that's what you're looking at today. Avoid Lunga Lunga Road if you can and have some fuel in your tank. Please stop and get some because it's packed bumper to bumper through industrial area as well. Okay, so if you're in the Donholm area as well, the train and a vehicle collided, so the train is not moving, and that's what's affecting traffic ahead of you. So it looked like a crazy morning today. We'll give an update in about half an hour. You're stuck somewhere, let us know. 40127 is how you can reach us on text or Spice FMKE on Twitter.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your
So
day.
2.5 minutes after 9, the conversation continues right here. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. C.T. Muga, as we begin the hour. What is today's proverb?
Today's proverb: a good wife is easy to find, but suitable in-laws are rare.
A good wife is easy to find, but suitable in-laws, ngumu kidogo.
That therein lies a problem.
Ngumu kidogo. Okay. So we'll be looking at what's happening in the American election as we continue. Of course, we don't expect that by the time we're finishing the show today, in about 57 minutes, we will have a clear indication of who's winning. Quite interesting. But hopefully by tomorrow morning, we'll have a better indication of how this thing has gone. And we'll have more and more conversations on that, on how it's been covered, how the other parts of the world, how media in other parts of the world have also been observing this and how they've been covering it, how the American media has also just been covering it and passing the information. So as we do that, let's now talk about how to get your business empowered, all right? We want to help you grow stronger with your business. We want to help you get your business online, get more visibility, get people to know about where you operate from, people to know that you offer this kind of goods and services. And this especially has emerged during this COVID-19 period when people, because of cessation of movement. Yesterday, we were speaking to Wangari, who's an owner of a business based in Kennel, and she gave us her experience. They had a shop, they sell beauty products, and this is all natural beauty products. And they had a shop in Nairobi, they have another shop in Kennel, Muranga. Because of the cessation of movement, because of the roadblock that had been erected just near Blue Post Hotel after the Chania River, they could not access Nairobi, so they could not come to their shop in Nairobi. They were forced to shut down their shop in Nairobi. What did they do? Fortunately for them, they had now gotten in touch with the people at Google, and they helped them to set up a Google My Business account of just putting a small, simple profile of your business online, saying this is what we do, this is what we sell, and even sharing some images of what you sell, say giving you directions of where you're located, giving the call details. If you'd like to call us, this is how you can do that. You're also getting reviews by other happy customers online and people saying this is how they find your product. And this helped them because they continue to grow their business despite having to close down their business in Nairobi. People then were able to go online, make orders, and they were able to deliver on those orders in other parts. During this time, this is one company that has actually grown by even hiring more people. Just by going online, you've seen the direct benefits. We've been speaking with an expert at Google because we're partnering with Google on this conversation. Expert Rosemary Momanyo-Pio. She'll be joining us shortly. She's the SME lead for East Africa at Google, and she's been telling us about Google My Business. Now today, she promised that she was going to give us a little more detail on Google My Business and how it operates, what kind of benefits you can get from this. But just listening to that story, and this is just one of many stories of what happens when you have your business online, when you get this visibility online. More and more people are learning to search and start their shopping journey online, and this is where they do their research. So let's bring in the expert now. Good morning, Rosemary Momanyo-Pio.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Very well, thank you. Good to have you back.
Good to be here as well. Thank you.
Good morning.
Say hello to Ndu. She hasn't been with us for the last 2
Ndu, welcome. I've missed you. Good to see you. I hope you're feeling well now.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, Rosemary. Good to see you too.
Super.
So we had this very, very enlightening and encouraging testimonial from Wangari yesterday on about her business and how she got into Google My Business. Today, Rosemary, you wanted to take us through what other benefits, what other benefits you can get from Google My Business?
Yes. So my hope was to take you through a dashboard, which unfortunately we're not able to share, but I'll send it over to you tomorrow so we can review it together.
Okay.
But I wanted just to highlight to you the benefits that an SME will be able to receive once they get the product.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just talk through them, and please feel free to ask me questions for clarity.
All right.
Okay, good. So the first benefit, of course, as an SME will get would be able to allow them to, in this case, stand out. And I mentioned before, when you talk about standing out, it's all about allowing yourself to be found. So the things that you help you stand out, you'll be able to highlight to people who are looking for you, for example, your location. You'll be able to highlight to people a way to reach you via phone number and also a website. And these are important elements for any SME. And then when you're able to get those elements built onto the profile, on the dashboard, you'll be able to understand how many views you're able to get over a month, for example. How many people searched for you? And then what is your overall activity at the end of the day from your profile?
Okay.
And then number 2, you'll be able to engage. And that means you'll be able to provide posts about your product, whether you're offering any promotional campaign materials, if you have a special running or you're offering discounts, you'll be able to post this onto your profile and have people to be able to see and be able to engage with your content, and then hopefully come and experience your products and services as well. And then I think for me, one of the most important elements that would be possible is you'll be able to get insights. And I think you asked about this yesterday on the call, Eric and CT, about Are you able to tell how people came to your profile? Are you able to tell the demographic?
Yep.
Are you able to tell the time of the day that they came? And the beautiful thing about this tool is that you're able to get a lot of insights. For example, you're able to tell how many people actually searched the keyword. In this case, we're looking at Eric's company, for example. How many people came to him because they are aware of the industry and are just looking in general? And how many people came to him through Google search? And how many people came to him through Google Maps? So again, it's very powerful. You're able to then determine where your presence is growing and how they're able to find you and how they search and what keywords they use to search to actually find you.
For people who may ask, okay, do you want to go on and then we can ask questions later?
Please ask. It's a good time
so,
to
I mean,
ask.
for people who may be wondering, then why is it important to have those numbers? How does it actually help your business in knowing these particular statistics?
Good point. So if I know that people are searching for, in this case, Eric's business, right? I'll make sure when I do my posting, I write there Eric business. And therefore, I know I'm going to be able to create even more awareness.
Okay.
But if they're searching for example, Eric's company, let's just call it a digital marketing company. If they're looking for a marketing company, I'll know, you know what, they don't know my name per se because I haven't built my brand long enough. Let me use the keyword marketing company that is digital and help be able to get more awareness. So you're able then to use those insights to help you define what is my strategy? What name should I be using to communicate? When I do my postings, what should I be saying? Where are people coming to me from? Are they coming to me from search or from maps? If it's from maps, that means they're currently within my area of jurisdiction. So I should spend more time highlighting the fact that I'm in this neighborhood and therefore I can attract even more people to come and visit me or check out my product.
Okay.
Yes. And then also on the insights, you'll be able to tell, for example, what day of the week am I getting the most visits? So, for example, let's just say I get most visits on Monday and Wednesday and Thursday, but Tuesday and Friday are very dry. So I know if I want to do any promotions or offers, I offer them on my dry days because Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday are quite intense. I'm good with those days. But my slowest days are Tuesday and Friday. Let me do my promotions on those days to attract more visibility to come and see me and try my products. And then another thing also I'll be able to determine from the product is to be able to understand who else is like me in this industry and how am I rating compared to them. So if, for example, now in this case, City has a digital marketing agency or you do as well, you'll be able to see on average, how do you compare versus the industry? Are you doing better in terms of getting more people coming to visit you? Are you getting more posts, engagements on your pictures or your postings? So you're able then to say, fine, the industry is here and I'm here. I need to up my game. Let me do more. Or the industry is here and I'm here. So you know what? Let me go ahead and just keep doing what I'm doing because it's working. Let me not fix what is not broken. Yeah.
Quite some interesting insights on then how you are able to tell how your business is doing in terms of how people get to discover you. There's one that I was waiting to hear and I didn't hear it. This is in terms of the demographics, gender and age of the people who have been searching for your specific keyword or your specific business. Is this available?
Yes, it is available, but then through another product called Google Analytics, which is also free. So what you could do as an SME, you'd get the Google My Business profile as a start to help you create your visibility online. And then you create a Google Analytics account and connect it to your business profile, which will then give you a lot more insights and data. For example, you'll be able to tell the demographic, the sex, the age group, where they came from, their referral websites that they came to you from. So you're able then to connect analytics to the GMB profile and be able to mine a lot more insights about your users and how they are and who they are and where they came to you from.
You know what I'm hearing, Rosemary, at least, is that the system you offer is an improved word of mouth approach to. Yes, it's digital, it's online, and the beauty is that it also comes with pictorial evidence as to what is happening, and then it affords you not the typical direction of if you go left, turn right, and continue going, which is meant which means you really have a long distance to go. There's a physical map and it gives you details, but if it actually does the one thing that messaging should do, it speaks to the person who is supposed to consume it. Am I hearing you right?
That's spot on. And you're able then to look at the trends. You're able to now know the details, but then also say, fine, over the last 6 months, these have been my trends. I've been peaking around this time of the month. I'm declining here. And so if I want to really improve my business, I need to focus on these elements. So you're able then to look at your historical data and then make some good judgments on what you need to do to amplify yourself, to do better. Or if you're doing really well, you'll now know what is actually working. What posts are driving most engagement? What pictures are giving me even more visibility? What keywords should I be using even more specifically to get me even more visibility on search and on Google Maps? So you're able then to do exactly that point, CT, and then look historically and say, fine, this is what worked, this didn't work. Let me course correct along the way.
If you look at the statistics and what you're working with, and then you see what's working, what's not working. There's some things that are also maybe someone would ask themselves. There's gonna be a button there that is you can call directly from seeing the statistics or the results. Once you search a certain business and you see their profile show up on Google My Business, do you also have the ability to text this person? Let's say use the text messaging apps, even the ones like WhatsApp or SMS. Is it possible, or is it only available for you to call? Is there also a chat functionality that could come in with this platform?
So great. So on the platform, you're able to make a phone call to the actual business owner on the direct interface. But then you as a business owner, you can be able to send messages to people who are able to engage with you. So if I went onto your post, your profile, CT, or in this case, Eric, and I put for you a review and said, you know what, I loved your product. I would love to know if you have any more offers. I'll give you 5 stars. And I post that review on your profile. You as the owner can then go to that saying, oh my goodness, Rosemary loved my products and she wants to know about my offers. Let me go and send her a message that tells her when I have my next promotion, when I have my next sale. So you're able then to engage one-to-one with those who engage with you from the profile directly. So on the profile, you can only option to call as an SME. You can be able to call the business owner, but as a business owner, you can send messages to that SME or that customer, if you will, through your product and through your profile.
Okay, so obviously in business, competition is so stiff, and everybody who wants to get out on top, right? So that everybody sees your profile first. What would put you one business above the rest, especially when it comes to this particular interface, to say that, okay, is it the amount of information I'm putting out there? What would make one stand out from the next if we're all on Google Business together?
Right, that's a very good question, Drew. So 2 things I want to just say to any business owner. Number 1 is make sure that you engage with your customers. So please be active. If you are able to do posts, if you're able to create engagement by posting out pictures and encouraging discussions on your platform, please do that. Number 2, for anyone who's able to use your products or services, encourage them to give you reviews. Because oftentimes when I look at buying a product, I always look to see what are people saying about this person. I look to see, are they getting 5 stars? Are they getting 1 star? And then I look and I read, for those who wrote 1 star, why are they giving it 1 star? So I always go and look and say, is it because the product was not good, or they were poor in delivery? So it's always important to make sure that you have superior customer service. You offer your best self to the customers, whether it's in your products, your own time in your delivery, you meet the expectations, and then you can get those 5 reviews. Because at the end of the day, reviews will make or break any business owner. And if you don't have a good product or you don't have good customer service, you will get negative reviews, and that will negatively impact your ratings on the profile. So when I searched for plumber near me, remember we saw like some plumbers had like 49 reviews, others had like 1 or 2.
Yep. Sure.
And those with the bigger reviews were at the very top. So we tend to point people out those who have got good feedback, good reviews, always go up to the top. And those without anything or no negative reviews will go to the bottom. So it's in your best interest to ensure that you have stellar customer service, encourage reviews, and make sure your products and services deliver on their commitment.
All right, just remind our listeners how to get to their business on Google My Business. Who do they need to talk to, and how do they need to get in touch with them?
Very simple. Thank you for that, Eric. So google.africa118.co.ke.
So that's what you just go and type google.africa118.co.ke.
Correct.
All right. So remember, if you just want to get your business profile up online, this can help. These guys can help you set it up. They'll tell you what you need to do. They'll ask you. In fact, they'll take you through step by step and also train you how to best utilize this platform. Google.africa118.co.ke. Rosemary, thank you very much for speaking to us today.
My pleasure. Have a good day.
All right. Join you again tomorrow.
Yes. See you then.
19 minutes after 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at what's happening in the skies. Where is it? It was raining in the morning in Nairobi. Is it still raining?
Oh, no.
I don't know. I'm not in Nairobi anymore.
No?
No. So is it raining?
Yes.
We'll
drizzle
find out
every
shortly.
morning.
Good morning.
COVID-19 imeimpact lives za wase wengi sana. Watu wame lose jobs, kutoka mama mboga, business owner next door, neighbor amefungiwa hao na landlord. Pesa imekuwa mteja, haipatikani hata ya kuweka chakula kwenye meza. Ili kujenga jirani, unaweza toa suu moja, 100 bob only, na hii inaweza badilisha maisha ya Wakenya wengi sana. Na usisahau kuungana na sisi for the Jenga Jirani Charity Festival 7th and 8th of November on KTN Home, na pia itakuwa online on www.jengajirani.org. See you then, ili tujenge jirani and show some love.
It has been a tough year for your business, hasn't it? But you hung in there. You pressed on. You persevered. And now it's time to rise up. It's time to get ready, to get going, to get selling. And Google is here to help you rise up. Get free training and tools to help your businesses adapt and grow online. Visit g.co/Grow Africa to start now.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Okay, so still looking at rain showers in most parts of Nairobi this morning. We will see highs of 23 and lows of 16 today. Then taking a look into Nakuru, 18 at the moment, mostly cloudy. Highs of 23, rain showers also expected throughout today. Highs of 21 and lows of 15 in Nyeri, and rain showers in most parts of Nyeri town. Eldoret, 15 degrees, is partly sunny today. We'll see mostly sunny conditions following later with highs of 22 and lows of 14. And in Kisumu, 25 degrees the high, partly sunny conditions at the moment, highs of 29 and lows of 20. And in Kakamega this morning, it's 25 degrees and partly cloudy, partly sunny conditions actually, mostly sunny later with highs of 29 and then lows of 15. In Mombasa, it's 26 degrees, light rain still coming down, highs of 29, partly sunny conditions in the afternoon, then with lows of 24. In Malindi, 25 degrees and mostly sunny conditions through most parts of today. A few clouds here and there late and a chance of rain with highs of 27 and lows of 17. Let's take a look out into Kampala, where it's mostly sunny at 23. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 18 today. In Dar es Salaam, it's partly sunny at 27, highs of 28 today and lows of 23. So sunny conditions throughout most of today. In Johannesburg, it's 18 degrees and sunny. Sunny conditions through today, highs of 22 and lows of 14 with partly cloudy conditions later. Lagos is still experiencing showers and it'll happen throughout most of today. 25 currently, will go to highs of 30 and then lows of 24. In Kinshasa, light rain continues at 25 with highs of 30. The rains are likely to go well into Thursday. All right, let's look east into Beijing, where at 14 it's sunny going into evening, highs of 14 and then lows of 1, getting chillier as the days go by. In Paris at 2 degrees, winter is setting in. We will see today highs of 14 and lows of 1. Taking a look then into London at 4 degrees, also very cold today. We'll see highs of 11 and lows of 3. Clear skies, however, just like in Paris. 8 degrees in New York today, getting now into Wednesday morning. Highs of 16, lows of 8. Clear skies throughout the day.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM.
On 0719-012-600 or 40127 SMS or Spice FM KE on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. So let's talk about the COVID-19 in the country.
Okay, ahead of today, where President Uhuru Kenyatta is supposed to address an extraordinary session of the COVID summit. Sounds so fancy, doesn't it? But what we'll be talking about will not elicit smiles, unfortunately. And looking at ways in which they're going to tackle the situation that we see in the country. 350%, that's a number that we've seen cases of COVID have increased by since the reopening took place about a month ago. The economy was already in recession. I think we had already defined that and said that we already had problems. And so by the time you're saying, look, it was time for us to open up, it would be that the president or the country, government at large, was saying that the cases have dropped significantly. Whether enough testing was taking place, that's a whole different kettle of fish. But look, cases were dropping. We didn't see as much prevalence of COVID in the country, and that is what fueled the decision then to basically allow things open up. And we saw that generally across board, from religious institutions to schools to the service industry, then now were allowed to open, and a few of those restrictions then lifted, with the hours of curfew also being reduced. In one short month later, we have seen 350% rise in COVID cases. We're taking an average of about 550 cases per day since the last 2 weeks began. We've seen high numbers of cases in particular schools across the country, whether you're looking at the coast, whether you're looking at Western Kenya, and also in Nairobi and Central. We're seeing those cases coming about. We are seeing that political rallies have taken place across the country, from Mombasa again to Kisii to Kisumu. And we're seeing, yes, some political leaders saying that, all right, in light of all that has been happening, we're going to put a stop to some of these meetings that we had originally planned. Learners have been affected and infected by COVID-19 ever since the reopening, and some schools have been shut even after opening. Travel is possible that this could be affected. It's possible that the curfew, which still stands between 11 and 4 a.m., could actually be increased because of what we are seeing at the moment. Now, with well over 1,000 deaths in the country, the health system could be on its knees if more and more cases are found with people presenting with symptoms. So today, key decisions are going to be taken. Tough decisions are going to be made. And what I'm saying, that even as the world's countries shut down, even as the world's countries go into a situation whereby they don't want to go into, but they're going to have to shut down to keep people safe, Kenya, taking into consideration the recession that is happening economically, has to find a nexus between keeping the people safe and also keeping livelihoods afloat. It is necessary that those tough decisions, those tough conversations have to be had today in order to come up with decisions that will make sure that people are kept safe and at the same time make sure that people are not hungry. It's a tough decision, but today I'm saying it must be had, and things have to be done to follow up to those conversations.
What are those things?
There will be many, and
let's start with a few.
There'll be many, and one of the things that you're going to do is that say, look, for example, we've had bars closed, we've had restaurants closed. We've never had what, in my opinion, would be one of the major causes of higher infections that we've seen, which is these political rallies. We've never actually heard it said, stop political rallies. There has been urging, there has been saying, okay, maybe we should consider not bringing so many people in one place at one time. I think a definite decision and a definite say needs to be made about this. And we've said, don't pussyfoot around the issue. We know that it could be a problem. Stop it now. Don't play with it. That's one thing that could definitely be done. Another thing that could definitely be done, if we're seeing the rise of COVID in schools taking place right now, don't play around with it. Shut it down. Now, do we see a direct relation between bars opening and the spread of COVID? We've not seen that. We could see the relationship, but are we seeing that the numbers are coming from there? We're not. At the same time, allow people to continue to make some money so that they can feed themselves, because we don't see that the government is going to come up with another stimulus package to put money in the hands and mouths of Kenyans. we've seen that there's been borrowing from the IMF recently. They don't have the money, or so they say. So it's unlikely that a stimulus package is going to come along. So in the absence of that, that's what I'm saying, it's difficult. You need to have something where you're doing to say, let's keep people safe. But at the same time, can we introduce a few things, or at least maintain a few things that allows people to continue to work?
You know, the mantle, the responsibility of keeping people safe is what we've been anticipating the government to do all along. And they have taken clear steps. They have. There's been a dust full of confusion also as to whether the measures that the government has put in place are actually working. Also, more importantly, whether they've actually been put in place or whether they've used every measure possible. Remember, we had this Harambee Committee, as we like calling it, whose purpose was to raise money so that some of these things that we're talking about now can actually be met. Now, that was an example of the government trying to ensure that the general public and the business community and the corporate community are also involved in these processes, all right?
Belly flop.
Where it went, how it ended, if it's going on, one doesn't really know. But the thing that stands out is that we're not even sure what it achieved. I'm certain the things that were done. But whether it achieved what it was supposed to, I don't know. Where am I going with this? I am saying that the citizenry of this country should seriously pause and ask themselves the most important question. Are you going to wait for the government to come up with measures to keep you safe, or are you going to find ways of keeping yourself safe? This isn't that discussion of, well, the government ought to. That we understand. We even know. We even have details of what they should do. But if it is your life that we are talking about, so the decision is really yours and that of the people whose livelihood depends on you. What decision are you going to make? Are you going to wait for the government and keep complaining about what they haven't done? Or are you going to do everything within your means to ensure that you stay safe? Let me give an example. If there's a political rally, must you attend?
Do you have to go? What are you doing there?
Must you attend? If leaders are coming to give whatever speeches, tour, meet the people, Harambee, whatever you want to call it, must you attend? No, you don't have to. Is it possible for me to sound a little bit like Eric the Evangelist and say, this was the title I gave him yesterday.
Oh, okay.
He was evangelizing here in the studio.
Right.
That you perhaps need to take the matters of your life a little more seriously than you're taking it right now. Because seriousness of our lives seem to also be dependent on how serious the government takes our lives. You can see what has been done. It is clear what they cannot do. This isn't something that is strange. And right now, all indications are that there isn't the money. All indications. So, it may sound like I'm preaching to the choir, but the choir needs to be preached to here for this simple reason. The only way we bring the issues of COVID to a halt is not so much by government. Government puts in measures, it works. If we do not adhere to these measures, nothing will work. So, must we wait for the government? We've been told what we need to do. Sure. Can we not do it?
Sure, and I think it definitely. However, there's still, you'd be surprised, but there's still an attitude from a lot of people that COVID is still over there. Wherever over there is, we don't know. But geographically, it's not within my area. So the people over there are the ones who are suffering from it. The people who have to deal with those children in schools who were infected and their parents and the people who are in their close vicinity, it's over there. And it still doesn't have anything to do with me. And then to a point, how can you really blame people? If it has not come to you directly, then you say to yourself, okay, well, I've been walking around doing my business. I've not gotten this thing. And even if I have, I haven't felt anything. Okay? This is the thing that people are seeing and feeling at this point.
Hold. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of Kenyans do not own cars. And neither have they. No, they don't own cars. And neither have they been hit by a car, and neither have they died from an accident.
But that you don't find them walking in the middle of the road.
Thank you, my sister. You are indeed a person, you're a clairvoyant.
Thank you.
You understand the direction I was heading in this.
Let's take a break. Halt, both of you. 27 minutes to 10. Let's see what's happening on the road and how many people are actually on the road this morning. Vast majority of people who are not driving, where are they? Are they passengers inside vehicles in the traffic? Let's find out. It's the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. What is it that we expect out of the president's meeting with the Council of Governors today? What decisions must be made by the government? What decisions must be made by the citizens? Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Okay, so
Traffic.
North Airport Road has joined everybody else. A container has fallen just near Amiran. It's causing heavy traffic, and unfortunately, for some reason, in both directions because of this container having fallen. So if you're headed in that direction, please try and turn around if you can still now. If you can't, you might be stuck there for some time. So that's North Airport Road, adding to the traffic madness that we're already seeing this morning. Mombasa Road still giving that off all the way through to the Nyeri Stadium roundabout, moving very slowly this morning. The rain affects all of this as well. And then going into the CBD via Uhuru Highway through to Westlands, moving very slowly this morning. It's going to be a long Wednesday, guys. So if you haven't reached where you're going, it might still take you some time to do that. So just giving you information of what lies ahead. So different spots where we see those issues will let you know if they get any worse through the day. If you do, let us know as well. Spice FM KE on Twitter or text us on 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
All right, 25 minutes to 10. The conversation continues. So, CT Muga, you're saying there's a role that the citizens must play. But at the same time, let's not downplay the government's role in supporting the citizens to play their role. Because the government has a role to play to ensure, even look at the other countries that where people are following those measures. When the government says, all right, this is what we want to do. We want you to stay indoors. We want you to observe physical distancing. What else is the government doing to support the people as they do that? Is our government playing that role? Is the government, can we just say that if we do everything that we're supposed to do and the government continues doing what it's not doing, we shall be fine?
You know, it's not as though the government doesn't do anything. The government does a great deal. Okay?
Just also as the people do a great deal.
The people.
Well, we are talking about now the next level.
The people don't do as much as they could. They still seem to wait for someone to do certain things for them. And I'm saying, let's just be realistic here. It's not a blame game. It's not who should have done what, who might do what. No. Realistically speaking, if my salary is 10,000 shillings a month, am I going to take my child to a school where they require 60,000 shillings a term? No. Because I can't afford it. I don't even need to do the maths. I can't afford it. All right? So what do I do? But my child has to go to school. So I will look and I will ensure the child goes to a school that
you can afford.
Yes, exactly. Now, I am saying there are decisions we make on a daily basis based on the realities that we face. I am saying let's extend this reality and make COVID an emergency reality, and let's respond to it in that way. That's really what I am saying here.
And I'll tell you that people are doing exactly that.
No.
You may look at them and think, okay, so people are not wearing masks. They're wearing masks. They're carrying masks. They're not wearing masks. No. That's a few
Eric,
people.
the thing that worries me is not the few or those whom we see by virtue of the places they work, what they do, that they are obligated to follow certain rules. I am talking about the things that are now coming to a halt called rallies.
Yep.
All right? I'm talking about gatherings. Every meeting that you see on the paper, my friend, social distancing went out the window a long time ago. Matatus, social distancing is like it never existed. All I'm saying is that a little seriousness, the word I'm using here is a little seriousness on this matter. What is required of me, what is required of us to do in order to stay safe is not complicated, but it flies in the face of what we are accustomed to, what we over years have conformed to, and we're being asked to change. We are resisting this change, and I'm saying, look, the reality is there is a limit to what the government it can mean as well as it wants, but there will be a limit to what the government can do.
Have we seen any kind of enforcement measures put in place for some of these measures that we talk about which are necessary? Because it's been said and it's been accepted worldwide. There are certain things that you can do. If you do, then you can actually keep COVID at bay, or at least see the numbers reduced significantly. The hygiene, washing of hands, wearing of masks, and social distancing. Have we seen in Kenya any kind of enforcement of the same across board?
I'm going to take it to a different level to actually answer your question. Have we seen those whose examples and those whose utterances and those whose voices people follow saying things like, well, what was said by the deputy, what is the report that has been said by the deputy? Outwardly saying, do not attend these meetings. We will not be having these meetings.
Yeah.
Instead, what we will do, we'll break it down into, if we want to pass a message, this is what we will do. Have they sought means of alternate means of ensuring that if you must communicate, of communicating? Now, I am saying that when I talk about the citizenry, Eric, I'm not just talking about the Mwananchi Mtukufu. No, I'm talking about Mwananchi wote.
Wote.
Because these leaders, even as they call these rallies, they are putting themselves in danger as well. They may not think so, but they do. Because if you look at the number of leaders in this country, political leaders, even officers, who have actually contacted, how do you think they have managed to get the virus? Because they also have no choice but to be in contact with the people. Look, the cloth you have, I'm paraphrasing here, is what determines the sort of garment you will make, really. Let's realistically look at the cloth we have. Realistically, what cloth do we have in this matter here? What is it that we're dealing with? The government must provide PPEs. That one, there's no question about it. They have to provide. Whatever goes in, they must provide. That is their job. But the things that we can do, it's like saying, I want the government to prevent this car from hitting me and I'm walking in the middle of the road. How's that going to happen? How is that going to happen? And I'm walking in the middle of the road on a busy day when there is the peak in traffic.
Yep, because on the side of the road is a pothole, on the other side of the road is an open manhole. You have absolutely no option but to walk in the middle of the road. Now, look.
Eric seems to suggest that there are roads on whose side is just full of manholes and full of potholes.
Yeah, because they've not provided in terms of safety nets and security. At that point, you find yourself,
why is it that you find yourself in that situation? If you look at the way we have dealt with COVID-19 in the country, March, April, there was a different behavior of the citizens. At that time, there was much collaboration between the citizens and the government. This is what we do, this is what we do. This is what we don't do, this is what we don't do. And people would follow that. And then going forward, there's what else? So I agree with you that, yes, we've got a responsibility and we've got to look at ourselves and make those daily risk decisions. But I'm also telling you that that's the same thing that happens every day, even today. You assess your risk and you're like, all right, so I'm assessing the risk. And I'm making the decision as best I could by assessing the risk. There's somebody else who should be mitigating some of these risks. And if that person is not doing the job of mitigating the risks for you, then you're left with no option but to just ride through the wave. You've got to cross to the other side. There's no boat. It's shark infested.
Man, that's a doomsday scenario.
So you go with what you have, because I think you go with what you have, and they say, okay, well, I can do what I can do, but I'm going to go about my business as the way in which I normally see it, because if I don't, how am I going to eat? And that has been the question that has been asked by many people for the longest time. Sure, okay, but ask me not to go to this particular place, not to do this particular thing. I am saying that knowing that that is going to be the attitude, knowing that that has been the attitude, there must be some kind of enforcement then, because if you know that these are the measures that are going to actually help to curb this thing. Because what are we looking at, folks? The kind of increase that we've seen in the last 30 days is not a joke. It's not a joke. And the measures that have been put up in place, it is clear that they're not being followed. On the day, for example, when this thing was opened, then it was a Thursday. The next day, the accidents between the SGR and Nyayo Stadium were counted as 16 by Saturday morning, because people saw it as an opportunity. Let's go.
Are there roundabouts on this road? Not really.
Not between the SGR and Nyayo Stadium.
No, there's none really. So it isn't a question of moving roundabouts.
No.
Okay, fine. Okay, I get it.
People just decided, we've been given the opportunity. We've been given the opportunity. Let's go.
Roundabouts are known to move after midnight.
Isn't it? Yeah, they've happened to do that on occasion. So I'm saying, look, even if something like enforcement of measures, and we talk again, it's not just, you say the common, what did you call them? Wananchi Mtukufu. Yes. It's everybody. It's everybody saying it. Because it's been, again, a suggestion. Okay, everybody be careful. But then you call rallies when there are thousands of people. Stop it. Be very clear. Be definite. Saying, if we're going to curb this thing, there are certain things that we cannot allow to happen. So stop it. That enforcement has not taken place. Because it's like we say, okay, there's COVID, let's be careful. But at the same time, let's do these other things. You can't do that. It has to be clear lines, demarcated, drawn.
We refer to as leaders, because they are Wananchi. You see, it's unfortunate that when you carry over trends of impunity and habits of impunity, and you carry them into the lives of other people, and the effects of your activities and your utterances endanger the lives of these people to the point where some will actually die because of your actions. So you actually nullify the very thing that you claim to be completely. In fact, nullify is a gentle word. You obliterate it.
Join the conversation and let's hear what you have to say about this. What do you expect the president to say after the meeting with the governors today? 0719-012-600. Sami in Nakuru, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for your contribution today. I have a different perspective. The surgical mask and the rest, they're retailing for 4 shillings a single piece.
Okay.
How sure are we that the mask is meeting the international medical standards? Are we people just trying to make money out of it? Are we protecting ourselves against the police or against the COVID? Even as we blame the citizens. Also, the government needs to come out clean and say, these masks are meeting the international standards. Because the masks are retailing at 4 shillings, up 1 bob, 4 shillings a piece. So I think...
So what you're saying is that they are too cheap to be effective.
That's true. Okay. They are too cheap to be effective.
Okay.
Because you can... So many other towns, people are wearing masks diligently, but the numbers are still increasing. So we also look in terms of the protective gears that we have.
Okay.
Sammy, where are people wearing masks diligently? I need to ask this.
Can I tell you the truth? In
Please
Nakuru,
tell me the truth.
Nakuru, don't dare step in Nakuru without a mask.
So people are wearing masks in Nakuru?
Yes.
Diligently.
Properly. Yes.
All right, Sammy. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution. Let's hear from Solomon in Mombasa. Good morning. Hi, Solomon.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. Yes. Maybe my contribution for today is very simple. I just expect the president to close the bar.
Only the bars?
The bars and those political rallies.
Why the bars, Solomon?
From my observation, is you see when people are drunk, that's why you don't drink and drive, don't operate heavy machinery. So when these people enter the bar, the first beer, the measures are taken care of. And as Kagwe said, when Jerusalem is played, everything go hell. And you see now, because the restrictions are up to 10, people are entering bars as early as 3 p.m., 4 p.m., immediately after work. So you find those measures are not well put in place. Because you see, in a bar, in a hotel, for example, you cannot always put your mask because you're drinking, isn't it? And people are on the dance floor dancing, so that means social is not even taken care of.
Are we considering where these people have come from? Where have they spent the day between 8 a.m. or 6 a.m. up to this 4 p.m. when they're coming into the bar?
Let me tell you, you may find, for example, from morning I'm on a mask. During the streets I'm with a mask. But the moment I enter a bar, you think I'll have that mask on my face?
So you remove it.
2, and for me it doesn't make sense. A bar is given more than 8 hours, but the church is given more than at maximum 2 hours. And at least for church, you can able to restrict. You can able to enhance. Yes.
We hear you, Solomon. Thank you very much. Pinky Gilani in Nairobi. Good morning, Pinky.
Good morning, Eric. How are you doing?
Good to hear from you, Pinky. How are you?
Nice to always listen to you guys.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, when you're talking about what you're talking about this morning, I think, one, it's very important for our leaders to be leaders.
Mm-hmm.
So, we are following our leaders. So what they are doing is what we are imitating.
Yep.
That's my first point. My second point is I think we should really be pushing the immunity aspect. Nobody, not even the Ministry of Health, is talking about how we as individuals can boost our immunity. And this comes from food. Food is medicine. As much as we are being told to remain physically distant, wear masks, sanitize, wash hands. But what about what we're putting into our bodies? This is where it starts.
Yep.
So these are my two things that I wanted to say this morning, Eric.
Thank you very much, Pinky. And actually, the issue of immunity, you're not the only one who talks about it. People who call in here talk about, let's boost our immunity, exercise, eat right, look at what you're eating, and then ensure that you're boosting immunity. Asante for your call.
Thank you so much.
Have a good one. Ed Getonga in Nyeri, how are you?
How are you doing?
Very well.
Andu, how are you?
I am fine, thank you.
Yeah, you had gone for a while.
I did.
Anyway, I think, first of all, okay, I agree with what CT says, that it starts with us. But also, with what you're saying, Eric, even the government itself. So I think what I would expect from the president is he would really ban all rallies. That is the first thing.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you this, like what I had told you, Eric, yesterday, there is that notion of money, okay? Now, people know when they go to a political rally, they will expect money. So that is why they have total disregard of their own self.
So they look at it as an income-generating venture.
Yes, wanajua, when they go
Yeah.
to support so-and-so, they're going to get this much.
Okay.
So one thing I think, he should ban all the political rallies. That is the first thing.
Okay.
Second, the restrictions that were there before, closing out bars and cafes, they should be back in place. Third, I think, I'm going to be quite honest, I work in the matatu industry, Erica.
Yep.
And I can tell you this, from my own point of view. Guys have total disregard of their health as opposed to their financial capabilities. So someone would rather pay cheap and be cramped up in a matatu than pay the right price and observe social distancing.
So should we, then, why haven't you talked about the matatus, then measures being put in matatus?
Now, I can tell you this for a fact, okay? It's going to happen, yes. It can happen, let's say, I'm going to carry the 8 passengers in Nyeri at the terminal, okay?
Okay.
And then when you go, let's say, like, for example, I applied an Nyeri route. When I arrive, like, let's say, at Narumoro, and I'm like, apana, gari meja, apana, wewe nitajiweka hapa. I'm telling you that for a fact. I'm telling you that because I've seen.
So you respond to the market, basically.
Yes, last night.
Yeah.
I can't tell you of the individual, but I know a colleague of mine who had to ferry 22 guys in a 14-seater matatu.
In a 14-seater.
Time was of the essence. It was nearly 11, and he was the last vehicle. And guys were like, "I have here to watch you now." And then the question is, where were you all those hours?
Why didn't you get on it earlier?
Yeah, when you realize klabu imeshika masando hiyo ndo unaanza kurush. I can tell. By the way, let me tell you this: we need proper cleaning ourselves also, mentally, because people, like, for example, someone is going to wear a mask based on kuna karao hapo. Someone is going to do this because bora sionekani.
The kanjo.
Yes, but you're forgetting that you're doing this, yes, but it's not the cops.
It is for you to stay alive.
Politicians' health.
True.
Yes, you need to stay alive.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ed, and we wish you a good day, Nyeri. Let's hear what the president says today.
Okay, have a good one, guys.
You too. So, Ed has actually just put it, it's about us, and he's agreeing with you wholeheartedly, CT. We have the primary responsibility rests with you and I, and then the supportive responsibility, supplementary, comes from the government. Okay, but don't close bars.
No, I'm actually in agreement with Eric. Because, you see, what is it about bars that has to make them the focus of this discussion every time we talk about a lockdown? Why?
Yeah.
Because it's easy to point to.
We know what happens in bars, but
So
it's an easy scapegoat.
Let's just go with what we were told by Solomon. Okay, 4:00, people are entering into the club. Yes, because they are sitting in this place and they are drinking. They remove the face masks. Has the establishment put in place measures that will go with what has been recommended by the WHO and the government?
Yes. That's the only reason they open. That's the only reason they open.
So all that is there.
Yes.
Physical distancing is there. There is a hand sanitization is there, or even hand washing place that's available.
Yeah, reduce the capacity of the number of people in the room.
So
right?
we've entered here. That's the same way we were in the office. We have come into this establishment. You remove your mask. I remove my mask. We are 2 meters apart. We start having our drink. I understand that at some point people get drunk and then they start, losing control and getting. It's a responsibility of the establishment to keep reminding you of your responsibility. Now, unless we get to a point where we're saying that we have done a survey across all the pubs in the country and we have found that at a certain time people are not doing this. We have also established that from the test results that we get and our contact tracing, bars are a hotspot. These are the numbers that are showing us that bars are a hotspot for COVID-19. Then stop just hitting on this, because it sounds to me like it's one of those easy things to do. Funga mahali yote ya walevi. No, you're affecting very many people. There are people who just went back to work just the other day. They had been out of job for a long time. Waitresses, waiters, DJs, barmen and bar ladies, all these people, even the cleaners in these establishments. You're saying go back home just like that?
No, unfortunately, I don't think that's something we can do, because look, we know it's not going to happen. We don't know that it's not going to happen, but I would urge seriously that it doesn't, because what we know will not happen is that there will not be another round of stimulus packages. There will not be a round whereby these individuals who've gone back to work and are maybe trying to find a little bit of balance in their lives again will not be taken care of.
And even that first round of stimulus packages did not
How
come
many
to the
did
bars.
not come to them? It didn't come to them.
It didn't get it.
The people in the service industry suffered greatly. We've heard horror stories of what people have had to go through in terms of a livelihood. That stimulus package didn't reach them. Even if another one comes, the likelihood of it reaching them is slim to none.
Nothing.
It's not going to come to them.
And if
the people you should be closing down, you're not closing down. The people you should be telling not to come out, you're not saying it to them.
If one establishment abrogates the rules, you don't go around shouting all the other establishments.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, talk to the one where
Focus
there's the
on
problem.
that particular establishment.
If
that
you
seems to
cut your
flounder the
hand,
rules.
It's about your capacity to enforce. If you cannot enforce as a government, then you have no business
Leave
being
it.
government.
If you cut your hand, you don't find yourself putting antiseptic on your foot. You deal with the hand where there's the hand problem.
Especially the specific spot where the problem is actually.
Yeah, deal with it. Because if you want to look at 1 + 1 = 2, look at the rallies that took place. Where are the highest numbers of COVID that we're seeing in this country right now? If those rallies took place 2 weeks ago and then we're seeing heightened cases right now, where are they? Where are they?
You would actually realize that it's following those crowds.
Yes.
Without a shadow of a doubt. The responsibility is I do not own an establishment that caters for socialization, but the I is the one.
They're open certain standards with COVID that they know they have to have maintained in order for them to open. Before it was just a takeaway service. In order for them to be open, there's certain things that they had to put in place to make sure that they could open. They've done that.
Look,
the rallies haven't.
When you walk into this establishment we call malls, apart from the usual security check, your mask.
Yep.
Yes.
And then someone standing there and saying, "Where's your mask?" If you happen to be in a vehicle, they're asking you, Where's your mask? Now, you see, that's enforcement. Enforcement in the sense that you are trying to ensure that the regulations are followed, but also you're reinforcing the idea in the mind. So you will know that you always have to have a mask with you.
Let's hear what the president says after the meeting today. CT, as we come to the close of the hour, what is today's proverb?
A good wife is easy to find, so they think. But suitable in-laws are rare. Again, so they think.
You choose the wife, but you don't choose the in-laws.
Actually, you do. If you do due diligence and find out who your potential relatives might be, you can find out who your potential relatives can be.
So a good wife is easy to find.
Yes.
But
good relatives, rare.
Why did you pick
suitable
relative is rare? Why
I picked on this particular proverb for a very simple reason. Very often we attempt to explain a situation which is fairly complex with a statement, but in it we're actually trying to jog your mind into thinking and asking the question, is it really true? Is it really true? Because in-laws have been given bad press for the longest time, but are in-laws necessarily bad? No, they are not. What you see in many cases are in-laws have a different perspective on life from you. They have a norm which they adhere to, and you are the
coming
stranger.
into it. You're the stranger
to this norm. So you will see that indeed there is some differences that in many ways you feel are a direct attack on you, and they're not necessarily that. It's just someone trying to enforce what they are accustomed to, and you trying to resist it, or the other way around.
Adjust accordingly.
Yes.
That's what you should be doing.
That's what our leaders have been doing with COVID. They are resisting the idea of enforcing it on themselves and telling us to follow things which they themselves are not following.
Okay.
Yes.
So U.S. President Donald Trump is expected to speak shortly. Well, we know what his challenger, Joe Biden, said. We'll be looking at that tomorrow. Have a good day. It's now 10 o'clock.